How many distilleries do we think there are? New distilleries. If we just focused on Scotland and nowhere else, how many are there? Well, the answer is a lot, an awful lot. We're going to talk about that a wee bit tonight. Obviously, we can't cover them all. Instead, what I want to do is focus on how these new distilleries are already having a huge impact on the whiskey that we enjoy. See you in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thursday night. Welcome to things settling back down again. Welcome to the vPub on a Thursday night. Sacred little pocket of time for us to just to hang out together and have a wee bit of selfish, perhaps, but hopefully not just chilling, relaxing whiskey time. I know that this is a wee bit of for a lot of you out there in the whiskey world. I know that we don't really see borders when we sit on the internet, right? So this is going out everywhere, and for a lot of you tuning in, maybe you're thinking, "Well, I haven't really had a chance to connect with much in the way of new distilleries yet," and I understand that, and I'm going to try and not kind of dwell too much on bottles of whiskey that you can or can't buy. What I'm going to try to do and focus on tonight, because I think it's quite interesting, is that look at how these new distilleries, of which there are many, I think you're going to be surprised how many there are, how they are affecting the whiskey that we are enjoying today, whether or not it's their own whiskey or other whiskies. It's quite incredible to see, just if you look at any retail shelf, any kind of online store, wherever it is that you buy your whiskies now, and just kind of take a mental snapshot of how many of these whiskies actually existed even 5 years ago, 10 years ago. These new distilleries are coming along and they are giving us more variety. They're giving us extra choice. They're giving us new names to learn and new things to connect with, all of these things. But I think that they're having an impact on their peers on the shelves. That's the topic tonight. I'll introduce it a wee bit more a bit later. There's some housekeeping I have to do tonight. But what I'm going to do is just before I jump into the lounge, I have to spend a minute just to say thank you to absolutely everybody for Saturday. It was amazing. The OSWAs, it went okay. I was a wee bit kind of, spinning plates and everything. There's so much going on. But I had such a fantastic time doing it. All that work, all that effort, all kind of everybody coming together at the same time, that sense of collaboration, that sense of community, and that sense of celebration was there at every point of the way, not just from us who were involved in putting it together, all the collaborators, myself and Ralphie and Graham and everyone, but the community. And especially, did you notice the enthusiasm of the people that stepped forward to accept their awards on the night? It means something to them. Why does it mean something to them? Because these producers know who their audience is and are privileged and happy and willing to step forward and connect with us. I think it's telling the ones who didn't respond. There were producers out there that won awards and not even their PR agencies that are responsible for spreading the word and being proactive for these companies even responded. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that in future. Thank you all so much. It was amazing. I'm going to start the stream tonight by reading out a list of names. See if you can work out who these people are. Trainsar Evil, Highland Hamish, Derek Sanchez, Justin Wan, Nicholas, Watchman 999, Callum F, Danny Hebbington, Eric Waite, Fabio Cavallero, Whiskey in the Six, Renato, Bob Neans, The Whiskey Franco, Daniel Williams, Everwind, Bill Dull, Whiskey Central Shayla, and the Malted Man Cave Keith. All of those people bought virtual drams during the OSWA stream on Saturday. despite us not being able to get in there into the chat and talk about it. We had such a tight schedule. Guys, thank you all so very much for your support, for your trust, and for your virtual drams. Ralphie and I appreciate it so much. Cheers. And we will be sure to share them with our sidekick for 2022, Graham. Before I go into talking about what's happening this weekend, because it doesn't let up, it's super busy, I'm going to jump into the lounge quickly and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. It's kind of strange being quiet again and not having somebody sat next to me. See if I'm rusty. Jesse Artinsalo is here. Good evening, Barflies and Aquaviti. Good to see you, Jesse. Fantastic to have you in. Welsh Toro is saying, just cracked my first Longmorn 18. That's a solid whiskey for the price. I think you're talking about the Secret Speyside one in the narrower bottle. And I would agree with you, Welsh. I featured it on the vPub just a few weeks back. I think it's tremendous. I'm really loving it. Molasses is saying good evening. Good to have you, Mike. It's always a pleasure to see you. And Jerry Miller is here too. Good to have you, Jerry. He's saying good evening, Roy. Jimmy Legg is, of course, and wonderful to see you, buddy. Quite an amazing comment left by you on that OSWAs stream last week. It really means a hell of a lot, Jimmy. It's quite emotional at times to read things like that. Whiskey Works Graham is saying good evening. Graham, I think I'm going to see you in Glasgow this weekend. More on that to follow. Max Kreitner is saying good evening, Roy. Great to see you. Great to see you too, buddy. I hope you're doing well, and I hope Christina is too. Hellswood is here. Good evening, Roy. Hope all's well. It's very well, Helen. It's starting to settle down a wee bit once this weekend's out of the way. I think I'll start to see the wood for the trees again. But it's good to see you too. I hope you're sitting next to Andy, and I hope you're both comfortable. Whiskey Franco is saying evening, Roy. And Peathead Frank is saying evening, Roy. Always great to see you in your vPub. Oh, and our vPub. I was going to correct you, but you did say our and not your vPub. Brilliant, superb, wonderful to have you in, Frank. Tom Elmer is here, all the way from Alaska, saying hello, Barflies. Afternoon, Roy. Good to have you, Tom. And MM Karsten is saying good evening, Roy. Really enjoyed the OSWAs. I did too, and I'm so glad that so many people, the feedback on under the stream is super positive. We're going through some of the comments that were left in kind of the anonymous kind of free text fields through the form filling in and things. And so many of the comments that were they were not critical, but they were asking questions or wondering about this. So hopefully through them going through the process and then maybe watching the ceremony on Saturday, most of those questions would have been answered throughout. But there are a few comments in there that I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to bring up in future so that we can address the refinement process that we have with the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. Ralphie and I did a lot of refinement after last year's, and we kind of knew what we were coming into this year a wee bit better. And we put those refinements into place in order for things to work a wee bit smoother. They mostly worked. Certainly what's happening is people are starting to understand the OSWAs. They are not a typical tasting panel awards ceremony, award system. It's not that type of initiative at all. It's a very different thing. Yes, it's crowdsourced. Yes, it's collaborative. Yes, it's very public. It's transparent. It's open. It's grassroots. It's all of these things. It's a different take on awards. It's community focused, it's consumer focused, all of these things. But it's just another really cool initiative to bring people together over whiskey. And Ralphie and I have made a commitment to continue keeping that as positive as we possibly can going forward. Peter Box is saying, hi, Roy and everyone. Great to have you, Peter. Jimmy Legg is saying, you're looking super fantastic tonight. Do you think so, Jimmy? I think that's probably down to a camera filter and lights and things. Neil Sungupta saying, watch the OSWAs live, but now rewatching it. Terrific, Neil. Thank you very much for giving us an extra wee view. It means a lot. Listen, it broke 1,000 people in the last 40 minutes or so. I'm not sure. We broke 1,000 people and it stayed 1,000 right up until close to the end. That's never happened before. Not even the Lockdown Whisky Festival that was super busy back in early 2020. Maybe Whiskey Tribe live streams, maybe some of those get easily into the 4 figures, but kind of a Scotch focused thing, Scotch community focused thing. I don't know of a video broadcast with that level of participation ever happening before. So it shows you that our ranks are still growing and it shows you that they're interested. It's down to us to make it interesting and better and slicker as the years go by. Well, Brother Ray is saying, good evening, Roy. Interesting topic today. I hope you think so, Ray. I was fairly convinced it would be interesting to me. I didn't realise just how interesting it was as I started to dig into it. And Ian Bruce is saying, good evening, Roy. Really enjoyed the OSWAs on Saturday. Brilliant, Ian. I'm glad you did. And Tony Nelson, new star. Even for a late entry enthusiast, it amazes me how many new distilleries have come about. I think you are not even prepared for what I'm about to show you tonight. Danny Hebbington is saying, evening, Roy. I hope you're well and done. And well done to you and Ralphie for another successful OSWAs. Thank you, Danny, and I hope you didn't miss me reading out your name and saying thank you for your super chat last Saturday. Talking of which, there's a super chat come in that I have missed. It's Jimmy's. I missed the OSWAs. Shocking, no. I have watched it since. I have notes. Jimmy, I'm sure you have. Thank you, buddy. Cheers to you. We always miss Jimmy when he's not around. I think I do. And JG is saying, whiskey, cheers. Absolutely, JG, absolutely. Just before I got on to tonight's topic, there's a big weekend ahead. It's a really big weekend, and there's people arriving in Scotland right now for this weekend. They're coming up from down south, coming in from Europe, and they're certainly coming in from much further afield too. People coming in from Arizona and California and elsewhere in the US and Southern Hemisphere and everywhere. And why? Because it's the Glasgow Whisky Festival this weekend. And if they're going to come to Scotland, why not try and time it for the festival weekend too? And then on Sunday, I'm hosting an event as well. There's going to be north of 50 barflies in a room doing an Aquavitae blind challenge live. So to just structure the weekend for you and just to let you know what to expect quickly, for those of you that are travelling, the first meetup is in the Pot Still tomorrow evening. And that kicks off around 7 o'clock. I think there will be a few in a wee bit earlier than that even. I meant to drop in this week and give Frank Murphy, Frank, if you're watching, just a heads up, buddy, there's going to be a lot of barflies coming into the Pot Still tomorrow night from 7 o'clock onwards. And of course, they're going to try and keep a lid on it. They've got a big, busy weekend of whiskey ahead. But they're all kind of gathering there for the first night in the Pot Still. Then on Saturday, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, get yourself along to Hampden, the event itself from 12 noon onwards. Get a decent breakfast in you, get a brunch in you, keep yourself going throughout the day, and make sure that you've always got a bottle of water on you, a bottle of water in your pocket. That's the secret cadence. Pacing it out, choosing the whiskies that you really want to try and connect with, and you leave the festival on a high and you feel good. And you can carry on with the rest of your day and keep the community spirit and the celebration going. Can't wait. I just can't wait. I'm so looking forward to it. Those of you that are coming along with us to the dinner, the curry house afterwards, there's a bus being laid on. Craig is just an amazing superstar. He's not only taking care of all the dinner arrangements, making sure that we're all fed immediately afterwards, he's laid on a bus to get us there too. So it's 4 o'clock. The festival is 3:30 kick out, I think. Last orders or last pour will be somewhere in the order of 3:15, 3:30 kick out. The bus leaves Hampden around about 4 o'clock and takes us straight to the restaurant. It's a £5 a head, so just pay Craig directly, either through PayPal, through Aquavitae Barflies page, or you can pay him cash on the day. And what that helps is that it stops us having to make our way to the trains and wait for trains, and the nightmare of trying to get a taxi from Hampden when everyone's coming out of the event at the same time. The bus is laid on, we can just get on the bus and we can all get across there together. It just makes perfect sense. Craig, you're an absolute star. Well done, buddy. Thank you. Then after we eat, we'll probably we'll just kind of all go in our separate directions, but I know a lot of us will head along to the Bon Accord and spend a bit of time and spend a bit of money picking from their gantry behind the bar. Then on Saturday, it's my event, and that kicks off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but I encourage you to get there early because it's a casino. You need to register with photographic ID in order to get in. It's UK gambling legislation. It's just the way it is. If you get into the casino early, you'll be able to register and relax in the bar, maybe have something to eat there, whatever it is, while we're setting up the room, and then we'll come along and get you at 2 o'clock. After that, after the blind challenge is over, there's some food laid on for you too. And of course, we're going to be doing a wee bit of a bottle share and relaxing and using the casino facilities and things. That's the shape of the weekend. If you get any questions, let me know. I hope you're excited as me. And if you've not been able to make it this year, I don't think it's the last time. Don't worry. Jay Francis saying big thanks to Craig for organising both the booking at the restaurant and the bus from Hampden. It's Akbar's is the name of restaurant. Fantastic, Jay. We're all really super appreciative of our pal Craig for working all of this out for us. It's not an easy task. Believe me, I know it to be true. Craig's a star, says Jim Novice. Such a great thing to do. Absolutely, buddy. Absolutely. We'll make it worth his while. Don't worry. Um, I have I taken care of everything? Is that everything that's yes, I had one more thing because I had a ticket, but the ticket's gone now, so there are no tickets left. I did my very best to make sure everybody had a ticket this year. Um, you know, it's tough. There's so many people. You don't know. It's difficult when the tickets are put out in March. You don't know what you're going to be doing in November. I appreciate it's tough. But if you do fancy it one year and you think it's something that you can accommodate, come to Glasgow that weekend and you might bump into a few fellow barflies. It's great fun. Danny is saying hopefully next year, Roy. Here's to that, Danny. And the Celtic drummer Gary is saying quiet weekend for me. Hopefully COVID will have disappeared by then. Oh my goodness, that's so sad, Gary. Then it's remembrance time for me. That is, it's probably good that you're having a wee quiet weekend then, buddy, to take care of your remembrance and obviously your health as well. Cheers, Gary. But thinking of you, we'll raise a glass and hope that maybe you can make it next time. Cheers. Jimmy's asking if his ticket's in the mail. And Timo is in saying big thanks for the OSWAs. Listen, I think that the OSWAs are still going to tick along. There's still lots of feedback coming in, lots of emails, lots of direct messages, lots of people asking for things, and people finding out about it after the event because you're talking about it, which is amazing. I really appreciate it because the more we can grow that thing, the more that people can realize they can be part of it. It's not an exclusive thing; it's an inclusive thing. And the more Ralphie and I will work to prove that this thing is absolutely legitimate, open, transparent, and there is no shenanigans goes on whatsoever. Dirty Dog is saying hello to all you beautiful barflies, and Lolander is saying, do you ever get around to other whiskey festivals such as Edinburgh Fringe, Fife or Stirling? I used to go to a lot of them, Lolander. I did. You just your priorities change, and I think that when I've got so much whiskey on hand, whiskey festivals are a really efficient way to get together with other folk and try different things. They remain a huge appeal for me, but I've got to pick my battles. And in the last couple of years, it's not even been on the radar. So I think what will happen is I'll just get into a rhythm of picking out my favorite ones and trying to tick them off, try a few new ones and things each year. So I do go to other festivals too. But yes, the one I commit to, absolutely commit to, is of course the one in my own backyard because it's the best. The Glasgow Whisky Festival. Ian Bruce is saying, what is your one standout winner from the OSWAs? I was so pleased, so pleased. Glen Scotia Victoriana took the best Scotch whisky. Why? Because I understand what's behind that whiskey, and it was a big deal. I knew it was a good whiskey. I've got 2 bottles of it here. There's only a wee tail left in both of them. I need to get another one. I love the whiskey. It's a unique whiskey. But more than anything, it's from a producer who stood up with that whiskey, put it out at higher ABV, put natural colour on the label, non-chill filtered. It's a non-age statement whiskey too. But people are engaged. People have tried it. People are blown away by it. They love it. And it was up against some stiff competition. That Legic 18 is a cracking dram. Bunnahabhain 12 was everybody's favourite. I thought that was going to take it just because of the popularity of that whiskey. What else was in the mix? The Ardnamurchan's cask strength was in there as well. I think that obviously it's down to distribution, and that's probably not quite got the distribution of other whiskies in the lineup. It was up against really tough competition, but it took it. It took it with a nice. I mean, Bunnahabhain was a close second, I think, but it was a nice, comfortable margin in the end. So that was a standout for me. I actually thought that Bunnahabhain was going to take it. It was good to see. Not that the Bunnahabhain would have not deserved it, absolutely not. But it was good for me to see a really enthusiast-focused Glen Scotia take the plaudits. And Ian is saying, I enjoyed the Victoriana first at Aberdeen Whisky Festival last year. Glad you're enjoying it. One major takeaway for me, says Karsten, is how freaking good blendeds are getting. Non-age statement as well, therefore. Definitely want to get the Orchard House and the Thompson blend. More to discuss there, maybe tonight, Karsten. I wonder what your name is, my friend. Let's get on to the topic tonight. And I'm going to just pull up some maps actually because I was listing all of these off and I was ticking them off as I was going through them and trying to understand wee bits and bobs about them more. There's no way I can research all of these whiskey distilleries, but that's not what it's about tonight, and I don't think that's what you want to hear either. But it's compelling to me to see this thing. New whiskey is a thing. So if we just kind of make the millennium as our dividing line for the core, just for the sake of tonight's topic, everything before the millennium, sorry Speyside, sorry Aaron, anything before the year 2000, we're probably not going to focus on. And that means that we cut away a lot of kind of Renaissance things that have been brought back from the brink, like Bruichladdich and Beg and things like that too. But if we focus on the new distilleries that's come in the 21st century, even if we just focus on that, the stats that I'm going to share with you tonight are eye-wateringly eye-opening. I even surprised myself to do this. Okay, I'm going to show you a wee map of my wee country here, and I need to swing over to the side, I think, to do this. Split up by regions, of course. Not that the regions mean too much as time ticks on, and we'll be talking about that a wee bit tonight, but for the sake of it, we'll keep it going tonight. We've got the Lowlands here, Speyside. We've got the Highlands and that big blue area there, Campbelltown, Islay. And I know that it's not an official separate region, but the islands I've put in a different colour because I do want to consider them slightly different. Highlands and Islands under SWA regs is part of the 5 regions. But in my wee head, the islands are separate. And I just like to kind of mentally file them in that way. But what I'm going to bring up now is I'm going to show you new distilleries. I think, unless that's a mistake, actually, I think it is a mistake. I need to pull it up. I want to focus on new distilleries and new distilleries that are funded, new distilleries that are in some form of construction, some form of a semi-built state. Either the foundations are down, the framework's up, something, but they're not producing whiskey yet. Maybe it's just a case of, yes, we've got the land, we've got the planning permission submitted, it's maybe not approved yet, all of that type of thing. Just work in progress is the best way I can decipher it, or I can term it. I'm going to bring in a slide here because I need to show you this. Will that work? There it is. So what we've got here, these are all genuine, legitimate new projects in various stages of work in progress. That's quite amazing to see right away. We've got 27 projects here. Let me read them out to you. Port Ellen, of course, you all know that. That's pretty mature. Port of Leith, mature. Dalriata, Machrihanish, both down in the Kintyre Peninsula, Campbelltown. Port and Truan, that's on Islay, of course. Ely on Islay. Lagan Bay on Islay. Portavadie on the west coast. Jed Forest, Coldstream and Moffat, all down in the Borders region. Ardgowan in the west coast as well. Glenluss on the west of Loch Lomond, Clutha and Glasgow, Burnbrae and East Kilbride, Cabrach and Speyside, Dunnet Bay away up north, Ailagary on the Isle of Barra, North Uist, Gramsdale also in the Hebrides, Wolfcraig away up Stirling Way, Hopetoun, Edinburgh, Dunfale and Speyside, Ullivest and Inverness, Easter Fern, that's round about Dornoch, Yonderton Farm, I think, if I remember well, I think it's in the Highlands. It's difficult to remember. And there's also one as well, because Speyside or the Tromy Mills distillery is going to have to move to a new site because they've got new owners coming into the Tromy Mills Speyside distillery. So that's another one. That makes 27 distilleries. 27 work in progress distilleries. There's a good chance that the majority of these distilleries will be producing within the next 3 to 5 years. Then we look at new distilleries. These are producing distilleries. These are all spread all over the place as well. Let me read these out to you too. Aberargie, Ardnahoe, Ardross, Ballindalach, Bonington, Borders, Brewdog, Brora. Lots of much more familiar faces here, right? Barnobeni, the Cairn, Falkirk, Harris, Holyrood, Inchdairney, Jackton, Rosebank, Roseisle, Tulavadi, or just Tulvadi, I think it is, Reavers, and 8 Doors. That's 20 distilleries in production. To add to the 27 of work in progress distilleries, we're still only in Scotland. Now look at this. These are new distilleries. All of these distilleries are in production and they have all released product. Kilhoman, Daft Mill and Glengyle, of course. Avenjarrick, Ailsa Bay, Annandale, Arbickie, Ardnamurchan, Clydeside, Dalmunnock, Dornoch, Eden Mill, Glasgow, Glenwivis, Isle of Rassay, Kingsbarns, Lagg, Lindores, Lochlee, Nicknean, Strathern, Torravake, and Wolfburn. 23 distilleries. So if we take the 23 and if we add it to the 20 that's in production but they've not released anything yet, and then the 27 work in progress, we get this. 70 Scotch whisky distilleries in this century, in the last 22 years. Okay, it's maybe going to take 25, 26, 27, 28 years, I don't know, in order for them all to come to life. And I know that I've missed some. I know that there are distilleries that I've not been able to add to this list. It's just fallen off. I've gone everywhere. I've been trailing through the internet. Of course, I leaned heavily on this fantastic wee book. Ingvar Ron's doing this hard graft, this work for everyone. And I leaned heavily on that for this information. But that's compelling, wouldn't you say? David Hong has bought me a dram to say, missed the OSWA ceremony last week, but watched it on replay. Great job and keep up the wonderful work. Thank you. And Ralphie, I need to pour something here. I'm going to pour something from one of my favourites, actually. This is a Kingsbarns malt. This is their Dream to Dram. This is about, I think I paid £42 for this. It's about a £45 whiskey. I'm just going to pour a wee drop because I might be drinking some. I've got 5 clean glasses out in front of me tonight, 5 Cupitas. But in this wee Glencairn, you see a wee sip of it's left. I put a modern young whiskey from an incumbent distillery. And I'm sipping it alongside these. I tried a Nicknean a minute ago. And now I'm trying a wee Kingsbarns. Thanks, David Hong. Cheers for your dram. Creamy, malty, lightly spiced, full of flavour compared to what I've been sipping. So full of flavour. Big difference, big impact. The most amazing ones I find to be those out in the Outer Hebrides, says Falsgraf. I so hope the storage there will have a good sea, so it's talking about warehousing out there, good sea influence on the whiskies. Yeah, we hope that something, like the way it does maybe in Ardnamurchan and distilleries like that, that coastal element, the Campbelltown thing comes in. Craig Dolores saying, good evening, folks. Evening, Aquaviti, just in. I've given out the announcement and I've been saying very kind words about you, Craig. So thanks for looking after us with the bus. Everybody knows about it. Whiskey Novice is saying, is it just me or has anyone been given up chasing new distilleries because they still haven't got around to trying all of this ones yet? I think this is a real thing. Are we sampling all 27 tonight? Aquavita says molasses. Absolutely not, buddy. Absolutely. There are currently 22 million barrels, says Greg, Watchman 999, whiskey sitting in Scotland right now. That's 4 barrels per person. Something's got to give. 22 million, is that the latest figure? Is that right, Greg? Wow. And Ben Whiskey with Molly's saying on the Kingsbarns Family Reserve, American Oak Bourbon barrels and STR Barriques, 59.2%. So that is an amped up higher ABV version, as I understand it, of their Dream to Dram. I hope you're enjoying it, Ben. I hope it's a good one. And Al Young is saying it's such a wonder, the number of distilleries in Scotland compared to Canada. Canada is roughly 3.8 million square miles compared to Scotland's 30,000. You Scots are so damn lucky. It's changing for you as well. And I think that that's important. I'll have to it, the vPub tries to be inclusive. It tries to talk about all whiskey, but my comfort zone is the thing that I'm into more than anything is Scotch, and I can't hide from that. I want to try other things, and I've got lots of other whiskies on the shelves. But if I can't keep up with the whiskey distilleries in my own backyard, it's going to be super tough to keep up with what's happening in Ireland, England, even. Um, it's certainly Canada, North American things. So tonight we're going to focus on this boom. I mean, that is an explosion. That's just a ridiculous amount of whiskey distilleries, right? That's just happening in Scotland. 70. When you first come into whiskey and you learn that there's more than 100 distilleries, well, very soon there's going to be 170 distilleries, right? Something like that. You're going to look at it and you're going to be, that's quite intimidating. So we need to find ways to make it accessible. And that comes from community, that comes from word of mouth, that comes from guiding light, guiding hands, making it a welcoming space so that people can step in and not be intimidated, for it not to be a stuffy place full of the knowledgeable and the not so knowledgeable or not so welcome. That's just, it can't be like that. It can't be like that. I know that what I've built here, it's very, it caters towards whiskey geeks, but I would love to think that people could come in not knowing that much and just kind of by osmosis or just by joining in or participating or chatting, just pick it up. I know that that's possible because I trust in the community I have, how welcoming you guys are, because you love to see what whiskey can do about bringing people together. New distilleries are very much part of that. I thought I'd missed that just as it jumped there. It was Gav's Ram says, where's all the good casks going to come from? Resource is huge, Gavin. I mean, it's just huge. And Gary's saying, I read an article a couple of days ago about an application for planning for a distillery at Nairn. Ryan is saying, Mon the 8 doors. So Ryan is up there, obviously. He's at the coalface at 8 Doors Distillery right up in the very north. And Gary, you make a good point that there's so many planning applications in, and you don't know if it's relating to one that you've already heard about under a different name or if it's another completely new distillery. Whisky Novice is saying, where credit's due though, at least these new Scottish distilleries wait their 3 years at least. Most of these new Irish ones are sourcing from 3 distilleries. It's frustrating as hell. That's right. It's a different model, isn't it? Sourcing and selling. It happens in Scottish distilleries as well, Jim, but I know that it's very common in Ireland. So it means that, yeah, it's just the way it is, and cash has to come in somehow. Hopefully, Jim, that means that they've been able to earn money, so when they release their product, it should come out cheaper, and I know that that's not happening. Ian Bruce is saying the sherry regulation changes from January will impact future cask availability. Oh, Ian, that's an interesting one. The sherry regulation changes from January. Now, there's something that's not been on my radar at all. I'd love to know about that. Falscraft is saying, I do find it fascinating how easy it is to at least have an idea of the whiskey once I hear a name. I know most of the names you mentioned, even if I never taste them all. That's right. You just want to place them in your kind of mental whiskey map, find out where they are. I've got a new Kingsbarns Dream to Dram, one that I would recommend, honestly. Nicely flavoured, creamy, malty. Still a young whiskey, but good value. And that's important, what I just said there. £45, I told you I paid 42 for this one, but good value. This is a full £20 cheaper. This is a £25 whiskey. What do we get for our £25? Well, we get this. We get a bottle of Glenkeith. Glenkeith is a great distillery, honestly. If you can get a Glenkeith from an indie, you can often have some quite nice drams from it, usually from the SMWSs of the world, the Cadenheads maybe, the Douglas Lings, whoever it may be. It's a Pernod Ricard brand, and most of it goes into blends. Of course it does, because that's the model. So what do we get for our £25? We get a 70cl bottle of whiskey, Scotch, single malt whiskey. But it stops there. It literally stops there. The only other things, apart from the distillery name that's on this bottle, is distillery edition, whatever that means, marketing fluff about where it is located, the traditional oak maturation, orchard fruit and rich toffee tasting notes. That's it. 40%, the absolute minimum. Understandable. It's a £25 whiskey. We know it to be coloured. This is a coloured whiskey. I have no idea what age this is, but I'm going to guess that this is a 3, 4, 5-year-old product. It is what it is for a budget whiskey. And that's it. It's going to be chill filtered. There's no doubt it's going to be chill filtered. Of course it is. That's the market. So this presentation is sitting alongside a blend, and that's the price pressure here. But this is pure malt whiskey. And in order for it to have any chance of competing with blends, how are people going to bump their 15, 17, 18 pounds for their bottle of blended whiskey in the UK? Even then, it's for a fairly decent one, right? You can get it cheaper than that. How are they going to step up to paying for malt? Well, they have to strip it down to 40, dilute it down to 40% ABV, which means filtering it in order to put it out at 40% ABV. And then because it's got to be young as well, they've got to colour it a bit to bring it on and give it the market expectation and all of this stuff. And we end up with something that's this. If somebody gave me a pour of this in their house, just sit back happily and take a dram and relax with them. But there's nothing in this glass of whiskey that would command my attention. This is anemic whiskey. It's nothing, there's nothing wrong with it. It's good. The quality is good. It's dependable. It's solid. It probably mixes really well too, but any better than a lot of blends out there, I'm not so sure. It's not bad whiskey. I'd go as far to say it's good whiskey, but it could be so much better because it's malt whiskey. And in order for it to fit into this package and meet that price point on that shelf, it's been stripped. Yes, you've been in a vPub before, and I know it's the geeks cry. I know, I know, I know. As time goes on, I don't get tired of saying these things because my palate tells me as time goes on that the enjoyment is coming from natural product. That's not an odd concept. Malt whiskey is not the same as whiskey that's put through a continuous still. It's not the same as that whiskey being mixed with malt whiskey to make a blend. Pure malt whiskey, single malt whiskey, blended malt whiskey, these are different products, and I think they need to be handled differently. They are telling us that. Justin Wan is saying, super late to the vPub, we'll catch it on the replay, but still happy to have dropped in. Live is always better than the replay. Justin, it's wonderful to have you here. I also raised a glass and said thank you for your super chat that you left for the OSWAs as well, my friend. Thanks for stopping by once more. Cheers to you out in Hong Kong. The difference in flavour between the two is remarkable, and it's more than just flavour. So again, when I talk about the whiskey grabbing my attention, I'm sitting here chatting to you and I'm thinking about things, but no, there was as that passed across my palate, the texture was obvious to me, a butteriness, a maltiness, a weight, something that doesn't exist. Obviously, there's reasons for it not existing. Not going to spend too much time dwelling on that right now. I'm not comparing new distilleries or natural presentation to price point whiskies, for want of a better phrase. Nick Gascoigne is saying there are 40 distilleries making whiskey in England. Lots to be excited about. There's another 40 plus in Ireland as well, Nick. It's incredible. Some of the English whiskies are absolutely spectacular. Andrew, Ranty McRant face. Andrew, I'm going to pick up a lovely wee mixtape from you, a sample selection from the Bonaccord tomorrow, buddy. Thank you for dropping it off. And Danny's saying as soon as it'll make a good mix whiskey, then I have too many other options. Glad you're taking it for the team, Roy. I've had that for a wee while, and it's quite nice to have it there because it's kind of like this soft little gentle thing, and it's nice to have the comparison. And when it disappears, I will replace it, but probably not with a Glenkeith, probably with something else that does that, because it's good to be able to demonstrate to people what you're talking about sometimes. And Highland Hamish is saying greetings from Inverness. Looking forward to catching up along with some barflies at Hampden on Saturday. Excellent, Hamish. I'll get to meet you there. I'll get to thank you personally for the dram that you left on the OSWAs on Saturday. Thanks so much. All right, let me talk to you about my feeling and my opinions and nothing more than that. Maybe you're seeing the same things that I'm seeing. Maybe you're feeling the same things that I'm seeing. Whether or not you can get your hands on some of the whiskies I'm going to be talking about tonight, I think you've already felt the ripples of what these new whiskies are doing. They are expanding a concept that was demonstrated before they appeared by independent bottlers, certainly, by producers who were brave to step out of the kind of let's compete with the blends blueprint type mold, step out and say, no, this is malt whiskey. We're going to do it differently. We're going to non-chill filter. We're going to put it out at a higher ABV. We're not going to colour it. We're going to look after the casks. We're going to put it out at whatever the colour is. And where possible, where it's relevant, we'll put an age statement on it too. Make sure you liaise with Leanne, says Andrew Butler. Okay, so there might be a sample set synchronization with Leanne. Fantastic. Jimmy Legg is saying, please speak as if you were me instead. I don't know if I could pull that one off, Jimmy. And MJ Rodney is saying, new distilleries are quickly becoming the most reliable and trustworthy place to buy a cask of whiskey. I know where you're coming from. I really do. The new sherry regulations will liberalise the definition of sherry. It will widen the grape varieties allowed and widen the region. It will also include unfortified sherry now, says Reb Mordecai. Interesting. Clearly, that will have an impact on whiskey. Sherry matured whiskey, of course. Thanks, Reb. Thanks very much, and it's great to have you in, buddy. Here's the first way that I think new whiskies, even within the last decade, has already shaped the malt whiskey landscape. There are people out there that swear that whiskey used to be better in the old days. And I've talked about this before. It could be true, but it's a little bit like saying, here's what you could have won. There's no way that we can go back and access those whiskies because there's so little of it left. And what there is left is super premiumized and priced out of all of our reach. New distilleries, generally speaking, are the opposite of that. It's in their interests to make whiskey available to us. And I think what's interesting is new whiskey is its impact on flavour. The style of whiskey and flavour. The Glenkeith that I held up to you earlier there, and pretty much every distillery that existed in the late 20th century existed for a reason, to provide malt for blends. That's what they were doing. And that's crucial to understand because it meant that they had to chase efficiency. They had to chase consistency. They had to keep a flavour profile so they could be relied upon for what they offered as an ingredient towards the makeup of blends. That's what they were doing. All the malt that we are enjoying today from incumbent established distilleries, the Deanstons of this world, Bunnahavens, so many of the Speyside distilleries, so many of the Highland distilleries, if any of them that you look at, they've been able to just carve off larger and larger and larger ratios of what they produce in order to put out a self-branded single malt whiskey, while still looking after blends, fillings, contracts. It's just the way that it's been happening. Despite the boom in whiskey, despite the graphics I've just shown you, the guts of whiskey, almost 90% of it by volume and almost 70% of it by value, in the 60s, somewhere in the 60s of percentage, it depends on the year, of course, is blended whiskey. That's where it's still the bulk of the market is at. However, there is more margin available in the malt category, certainly as things certainly become more and more premiumized. That has to be true. Why? Because of all these new distilleries that are appearing. And if you can't make money making whiskey, you're not going to make a distillery. So there's money in single malt. There absolutely is. But these new distilleries are coming in not just to make money, they're coming in to make money from giving us flavour. And so many of these new distilleries, not all of them, but so many of them are focused on making different flavours, not chasing efficiency, chasing flavour, and not chasing consistency, chasing variety. That means that when it comes to them putting out whiskey for single malt's sake, which is what they're doing, they're not making product, generally speaking. Some of the names I read out tonight will be making product for blends, absolutely. Rose Isle, Ailsa Bay, Dalmonic, these distilleries will be making products for that. But generally speaking, they'll be making it to be sold as a single malt. And they'll want to have as much flexibility in their armory as possible. So they'll want to have different styles, different barley strains perhaps, different yeast, different fermentation times, different cut points, different cask maturation, in order to fill their warehouses with enough variety that they can bring us out exciting products that are led by flavour. Now, we're still very early. The distilleries, maybe the Daft Mills, the Glengyles and things. It's amazing that Kilkerran's got a 16-year-old product out there, right? Kilhoman for 2022 released a 16-year-old for the Fushiel. Amazing. There are mature distilleries. Daft Mill have been making products since 2005, 2006. There are mature new distilleries out there, but generally speaking, most of them are very, very young. And what we're getting is not what they're going to eventually taste like, but we're getting a snapshot in time. But we are tasting young whiskey that tastes nothing like the young whiskey of old. Maybe this Glenkeith, maybe if that was put out at 46% ABV, it would be a much more valid comparison, but it's 40% ABV, but it's still young whiskey. The whiskey that's been made from new distilleries, no bones about it, they're chasing flavour. So the yields, the efficiencies and everything, yes, it's important, it's all part of making money, but they have to have flavour first because they know they're not the only new distillery. As I've just shown you, they're one of 70. They have to be flavour focused. This is having an impact. I think it's having an impact on the whiskies that we can buy from new distilleries, but it's also making other distilleries consider flavour first, more than they ever have in the past. Incumbent distilleries, larger producers, starting to experiment a wee bit with yeast, starting to see how they can influence, take care of the flavour and the spirit through fermentation times, through distillation, through every step of the process. They're thinking about this. What can we do to make it better? Because not all of the stuff that we make has to go into a blend. Whiskey Novice has bought me a wee dram. See y'all soon. Cheers. First round's on you, Roy. I'm hoping to be able to get to the pot still tomorrow, but it's going to be tough, Jim. Taking Saturday and Sunday away from the family, and there are still things, family running around, things to do. If I can make it to the pot still, buddy, I know I'll be able to welcome you there, and I'll be happy. It'll be a privilege for me to buy you a wee dram, buddy. So I think that already when you see new distilleries setting up, we are seeing flavour being the focus because they know that they have to put it out here at a very young age oftentimes. There's a lot of distilleries out there like Daft Mill, like Ballindalach. Ardnamurchan waited a wee bit longer. Ardnaho's hoping to wait a wee bit longer. They don't need to put it out on its third birthday. Other distilleries have had to put it out as soon as possible, as soon as they think they've got a viable product. But their 3-year-old product does not taste like 3-year-old bulk made product, in my experience. It's different. They are having an impact on flavour. Timo's bought me a wee dram and just saying cheers from Finland. Cheers right back to you, Timo. Cheers. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do tonight. I've been collecting whiskies on the last few weeks with a view to doing a new whiskies, a new distillery, topic. But it was, I think it was Mirko and Patreon suggested that I cover new distilleries. I don't know if this was the angle he was looking for, but this is the kind of angle that I was coming at it from. And I know I'd collected a little cookie trail of whiskey bottles that I could demonstrate and I could uncork with you. It's not going to be an uncorking review. What I'll do is I'll put up a wee poll. I've got a new Loch Lee here. I've got the first release over my shoulder that's open and I'm enjoying, but this is the Our Barley release from Loch Lee. This was £50. No, a wee bit under £50 actually, 46% ABV and all natural, of course. But this is using a combination of bourbon, sherry, and STR casks. So I think their Our Barley is probably the closest that they're going to get to their maybe core style. That's kind of how I'm feeling about it right now. Because they've got this one too, and this is the fallow edition. Look at this. And what's yes, super dark, super dark. So I know that you're going to be saying right away, oh, cask forward, cask led, and everything, and no doubt, but it can still be a wonderful whiskey, right? Especially when this is fully matured. There's not a finish on this one. Fully matured in first fill Oloroso sherry. Fully natural, 46% again, once more. Wonderful colour on their fallow edition here. Wonderful, rich. This very, very this time of year. £50. It's £1 or £2 more expensive than our barley, but we're paying for that cask, right? We're paying for those expensive, rare, precious sherry casks. So I've got a super rich, potential super rich sherry bomb here for £49, all natural. Then look at this. The colour of that. It's like I've held up a bottle of Coca-Cola, maybe cherry cola or something to you. This is from Lindores up in Fife. And this is their Casks of Lindores series. This one is obviously sherry again, but this is, again, not a finish. This is matured exclusively in Oloroso sherry butts. Again, this was a wee bit more expensive. I think this was £59. But again, we're paying for something that is all about the cost of the casks, there's no doubt. This is probably Lindor's most expensive, I think, core release. But there's plenty of it out there. So all three of these are available for opening. But I've got a couple others as well. I've got our old favourite, Ardnamurchan, still sealed. I've tried this. I loved it. I tried it in the Bonaccord. I managed to pick this up at the Bonaccord. This is the Madeira cask. This is a 1022. This is a finish. This is a Madeira cask finish. So we've taken that lovely Ardnamurchan from the bourbon cask and we've put it in Madeira cask for just over a year, I think. It's one of just under 6,000 bottles. 58.2% ABV. I mean, look at the colour of it. It's just such a gorgeous, gorgeous whiskey colour. Beautifully rich, beautifully just right in the middle of the spectrum there. And then we've got this baller. We've got this bold, brash, shouty tearaway of a thing from the lowlands, believe it or not. Southern Arran is actually considered a lowland distillery. This is brand new. This is a peat monster from Lagg. And it's interesting. I've only just noticed it in the run-up to this vPub. Do you see the design of that bottle? It looks like it's just viscous and it's been clinging to the bottle. Now, I originally thought that this was maybe a design to mimic the kind of landscape and the shape of as you approach Lagg. It's quite hunkered down and quite low. It's like they're trying to hide the buildings, and certainly they're hiding the warehouses down really low. I thought it was about that, but I think it's much more about the oiliness of this whiskey. If you go to Lagg and if you see the stills at Lagg, and if you try their new mixed spirit, they're not messing about. They're doing something completely different. They know that this is going to be a difficult sell. This is fully pointed at enthusiasts at a young age. There are not many people making a big, bold, oily, heavy whiskey and putting it out there at 3 years old. This is not a core product. This from Lagg is a snapshot. This is you'll get it now and you'll probably never get it again. £75. It's expensive. I hope in time, once Lagg have released I think they're putting out 3 inaugurals, 3 different types. Once they've put out their 3 editions, we need to see that price coming down a wee bit. Certainly it needs to start matching its peers. I was happy to pay £75 for this one in support, but £75 is a wee bit high. But it is their inaugural. It's the first, and that's why. And they've put enough of it out there, hopefully, that it can get. I know that it's sold out through most of the online stores and things. I know that there were some ballots and everything going on. I was able to pick that up at the distillery. I was lucky the timing was right. Chris is saying Southern Arran isn't a lowland whisky according to the SWR. All islands on the west coast are part of the Highland region. I think that that's true. I think that when it comes to the Scotch whisky regulations as well, it's a wee bit like Speyside, how they can decide whether they want to be Speyside or Highland. And I've heard it directly from Arran that because Arran has this, so it's less to do with man-made borders, it's to do with the fault lines, the difference. But if you've ever been to Arran, you'll see that there's this really high dynamic landscape in the north, and this much more kind of slightly more gentle landscape in the south. And there's a fault that runs right through Arran, I believe, I'm told. And they want to make a thing about this. So I believe that it's listed in the Malt Whisky Yearbook as Lowlands. Arran, I believe, are self-referring as a Lowlands distillery. It doesn't really mean much to us in the scheme of things, does it? Regions are becoming just kind of generalized sorting buckets now. They have far less to do with flavour today than they ever have for as long as they've been going. However, if Arran want to call themselves, sorry, if Lagg want to call themselves Lowland, they can call themselves Lowland, and if they want to decide that they're part of the Highlands and Islands, they can absolutely do that as well, Chris. Thanks for the comment. Jimmy, like I was saying, I love some single-digit age statement whiskies, but haven't loved too many 3 to 5-year-olds. Are you really saying that you think these young whiskies are good? I'm having a hard time with this. I think you make a great point, Jimmy. They are good. I am saying that they are good. Are they the type of thing that I would want to continually have on my shelf? Or do I want to kind of treat them much more as a snapshot? I want to do the latter. Remember Wolfburn, one of the original Auroras? I really didn't like it. It was just so spiky and sharp and loud, and it seemed to hide. I think it was the Aurora. I'm going from memory now. It seemed to be hiding behind its blanket of peat smoke and things, and I wasn't really excited. It was jarring to me, and it took me a long time to go back to Wolfburn to understand it a wee bit more, to understand what new whiskey is about, things like that. But now that I'm going back to Wolfburn, I'm starting to get much more complexity. I'm starting to get much more layers. I'm starting to get much more maturity in there. It almost makes me think I wish I'd hung on a wee bit to some of that early stuff to work out, is it me that's changed? Or is it, no, I'm actually tasting this whiskey as it moves forward? Do we want to engage with whiskies if they put it out very, very young? I think there's a few out there that are just, for me, just a wee bit too young, but they're still whiskey. Maybe you need a wee bit of water, you need a wee bit of time. It's not going to be the best whiskey on your shelf, but we are privileged right now that we are able to buy these snapshots if we choose and study the growth of a distillery. That's incredible. When Bruichladdich and Ardbeg and distilleries like that were brought back on stream, that's not what we got to do. It wasn't until the Kilchoman's and the Kilkerrans and the Daft Mills, people like that started up with completely new equipment, completely new sites, completely new, did we start to be able to connect with this journey that these distilleries were making. Can't argue with the success of Kilchoman. We certainly can't have any truck with the ridiculous success of Daft Mill and Glengyle, Kilkerran. There's so many distilleries, and for some people they are connecting. Kingsbarns, Lochlee, Ardnamurchan certainly, Glasgow Distillery coming into its own now. There's more and more distilleries that are starting to show their colours. Everything is brightening up, the contrast is coming, the definition is coming, the maturity is coming. We need patience. While we're being patient, what would we rather have? Access to the young spirit as it matures, or for it to be hidden from us? I think there's an argument for both. I think that it's nice to keep your product off the market if you can afford it, build up pent-up interest and pent-up demand so that it's a bigger deal when you do launch. But I also think there's a lot to be said for building a loyalty from early days. People being able to build up an understanding of where the spirit is going. And for enthusiasts, I think there's something in that. The next thing I want to consider, I need to put up I think we can put up a poll. Let's try this. I'm going to uncork one of these tonight, either the Madeira cask from Ardnamurchan, Lagg, the Lindores, the super dark Lindores here, or one of the Lochlees. I think I can only, so I'll just type what to open, and then you can decide, okay? I'll put in Lindores, put in Ardnamurchan, Lindores, Oloroso. Ardnamurchan, Madeira. I'll put in Lagg. first release. And I'll put in Lochley. Uh, let's do the fallow edition. So Lochley Sherry. Okay. Fallow edition, is that what they're calling it? Yes. Let's see if this works. The first time I've ever tried this. So there should be a poll live that you can see now. I think that people can vote. Let's see, can I vote? I don't think I can vote on it. But you tell me if that's working for you, and we'll have a wee look to see how the percentages are doing. It seems to be working because there's votes rolling in. Fantastic stuff. 369 of you in, so hopefully we can get some interaction there. By the way, if you're looking for this poll and you're watching on Facebook or elsewhere, apologies, I've just put that poll in the YouTube chat. The live chat that I interact with is in YouTube. It's where the barflies hang out, and that's where I like to look after them. Hellswood is shouting Ardnamurchan. Terrific stuff. So while you're voting on that, I'll bring up where I think that new distilleries are affecting our whiskey for good and bad. And honestly, I think I might end up arguing that this is actually a good thing in the end. Let's see. I'm just going to talk this out loud. But of course, I'm talking about price. I think new distilleries have come along, and I think that they are certainly affecting the price that we pay. There's been some comments on Twitter from Blair Bowman recently hinting at this. A fantastic article from Matt Mackay. The Dramble, I wish I had the link up here. Just Google the Dramble, Matt Mackay, but his most recent article, he's talking about this ridiculous, cynical premiumization we're seeing, the kind of Macallan copybook that people are following, and we're seeing Ian McLeod brands going in that direction a wee bit. We're certainly seeing Diageo going there really, really ridiculously so. The crazy stuff that's happened with Oban, Lagavulin, and worst of all with Talisker 18. And he's asking, how many people are there up there at the luxury end of the market? How long before that's flooded? And what they're doing is that they're leaving this gap in the middle, this vacuum, this wake for other producers to come in and take this, because we've got these mass market whiskies, these budget whiskies, these price point whiskies, whatever you want to call them. And then we've got these super premium ones, and then suddenly the middle is stretching. It's really stretching. Well, the answer is, for me in Scotland, for me in the UK, these new distilleries and producers that are willing to put not premium products in there, but natural products in there. We don't expect to get it for free. We know that if we ask for more ABV in the bottle, we have to pay for that. We know if we want them to take extra steps to give us the best casks, to take care of the product, to do all of these things, we know that it's a gamble. We need to pay for it. We need to pay for it. The industry, I don't think, felt that people are willing to go out and spend 40, 50 pounds, 60 pounds on a core range product, an entry-level product. Deanston 12 is still 40 to 45 pounds. But that's a bit more expensive than it was a few years ago. The same for Bunnahabhain 12. The same for so many. All the Loch Lomans are 45 pounds, the 12-year-old series. The same for so many core ranges. That's higher. Springbank 10 is now 50 pounds. It's gone up in price a wee bit. That's because it has to go up in price. It's more expensive to make. But it has to go up in price in order to make profit, to keep these things viable. It has to go up in price because they can see the new distilleries coming into the space and charging 45, 50, 60 pounds for 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old whiskies. It's inevitable. We are not complaining about the prices of 10-year-old, 12-year-old whiskey. We are not complaining too much about new distillery pricing when they're fair. Not when they're fair. 45 pounds for Ardnamurchan. 45 pounds for Kingsbarns. 45 pounds for Lochley. 50 pounds if they put it in a lovely sherry cask, right? We're not complaining about this because we know we need to pay for this. And we know we've got commitment from these new distilleries to say that as the whiskey becomes more mature, we'll keep the price on point because the cost is not really so much in it. Yes, you need to build warehouses, you need to store it. It's not free, but the cost per litre is not actually in the maturation. Cost per litre is in the cost, the capital cost of the setup, the years of waiting, staff, the distribution, getting it out there, the marketing, all of that costs money. We need to pay for it, especially if we're asking for it to be natural. The industry has shown that people are willing to pay a wee bit more for natural products. How many of those names that I read out to you that are available today, how many of them have put product out there at less than natural? To my knowledge, none. None. If they put it out at £60, the whiskey's got to work harder. Glenlivet, perfect example, £62.50 I paid for my bottle of Glenlivet. That's asking a lot of the whiskey at that price. Has it paid me back? Absolutely it has. It's a cracking whiskey. It is still young, but it's unique. So fruity, so ridiculously fruity. £45 for Ardnamurchan core range, £45 for this Kingsbarns that I enjoy. And I think, honestly, £45 or £50 I paid for my first Loch that I'm enjoying. That's asking a lot of the whiskey. Does it pay me? Yes, it pays me back. I'll replace them. That has helped soften the market price point wise. Deanston 12 at £45, that's just the price of it now. And it's come along at the right time because Deanston 12 at £35 was not cost effective. That was not good for the long-term health of Deanston, in my opinion. And if they're going to try and put it on supermarket shelves, you can see why Deanston suddenly were flirting with 40% ABVs and the Kentucky cask and nonsense like that, because they have to find something that works. No, don't bend the product. Make the people understand what the product is when it's at its best and charge what's fair. I think that new distilleries have shone a light on the fact that enthusiasts and people who are coming into whiskey because they enjoy gin that's high quality, they enjoy good wine, they enjoy beer, craft beer, that's flavour first and not just a drink. This is not difficult to understand as a concept, and I think it's already had an impact on the pricing of whiskey. Matthew Edgeworth has been a member, celebrating being a member of the Barflies. Thank you, Matthew, for 13 months. He's saying fascinating discussion tonight, Roy Slancheva. Thank you very much, Matthew. Thank you. The Barflies so they don't support, they do support me. It's fantastic. But my support comes through Patreon. I'm financed through Patreon. The Barflies, you guys are amazing because usually the platform on YouTube is to take a cut of the ad revenue. I don't monetize anything. You don't sit through adverts to watch my videos. If you cut up the vPub into chunks, you don't sit through multiple ads to drop in and out. The Barflies have taken care of that. $1.99 a month of whatever dollars or euros or whatever your currency is. And it means that the content on this channel will be ad-free, and that takes a lot off my shoulders too. Thank you, Matthew. I'm very glad to have you supporting as a Barfly too. And Peter is saying, shall we try to not speak about Ardnamurchan during the whole vPub? It's great stuff, but by putting that in a poll was decided up front that would be the choice, just from airtime. The cynical Frank. Let's see, 41%, my goodness. But I think that a lot of people are genuinely interested in what that Ardnamurchan Madeira is all about. And I tell you what I'll do is I will also open what comes second. So what I'll do is I'll end that poll. The Ardnamurchan's clearly ahead, 41% against 23% for Lagg, Lindores, Oloroso, and 16% for Loch Lee. So I will end that poll. I'm opening Ardnamurchan. It is what it is. I'm very happy that that's the case too, Frank. I'm sorry, buddy. And I will do another poll. And then I'll add both the Loch Lees this time. To open second. You know Ardnamurchan in this, Frank. Hopefully that sits with you a wee bit better. Lochleaf fallow. Lochleaf barley. Lag. First edition. Lindores Sherry. There we go. Now, I missed a wee super chat there as I was doing that nonsense, I think. Whiskey Works Graham. He's travelling over here, probably travelling tomorrow, Graham. He's saying, going to catch some Zeds. A certain Hallian whiskey novice has me getting up early. Looking forward to early birthday celebrations. Fantastic. Graham, are you coming over to celebrate your birthday? It's going to be amazing to see you at the weekend, buddy. So let's, I'll take the last wee sip of my King's Burns. And get the Ardnamurchan open. How are we doing for time? 1:11. I thought I'd missed this. It was in the Bonaccord. And a wee comment. Oh, I've got one I can sell you if you want it. £70 this was. A wee bit more expensive, but this is not core range. This is a limited release. It's cask strength as well, so it's 58.2% ABV. This is Ardnamurchan's special release, their Madeira cask finish. Just pour a wee bit of that. I managed to get a few dry nights this week in preparation for a whiskey soaked weekend, if we're honest. Can we just talk about the colour of this? It's the perfect centre point of whiskey. It's rich but still golden. It's got copper tones. It's got these kind of gorgeous magenta like highlights in it. I am pretty certain, and back in 2021, when I was up at Ardnamurchan, I think I got to sip directly from a Madeira cask. I'm just going from memory, but this nose is exactly like that memory. Warm oak, kind of warm, kind of comforting, woody note here, but a huge fruit and nuttiness. Sweet fruit, spices, plum, ripe plum, spiced plum. A lovely sweet, sweet apple. Go as far to say even like bruised apple. There's a fermenting note here. Looking for the Ardnamurchan salt. It's kind of hidden. Anyway, cheers. This is what you picked. 41% of you, sorry, picked this one first. I'll have a wee sip and then I'll set it to rest. Everything lights up. Where to go? It's drier than expected. It's nice dry in the development. So if you can imagine sweetness that is not in any way kind of sickly. So we're not in the toffee caramel side of sweetness. We're in sweet fruit, sweet spices. There's a great plum, almost like a jam-like quality to this. There's a nuttiness, a real kind of oaken. I haven't done the QR code on this one, so I haven't checked out what the actual ages of the casks are. There is a QR code on the back. Do we care about the age? This is just fully flavoured. So if you said to someone, if you gave them a glass and said, "Here, taste this, go out and take this £70 from me and go out and find me a bottle of whiskey that tastes as fully flavoured as this for £70." You would have been in the realms of Springbank, Independence, and very few others 15 years ago. Okay, adjusting for inflation. It would have been tough. This is new. This flavour, what's in this glass, what I'm sipping here today, forget about the Madeira cask, it's wonderful, but this is new and it's reliable. I said I'd leave it, but it's Moorish too. On that topic, let's bring in what I think new distilleries, how they are affecting the presentation of our whiskies. I asked you already when we were talking about price, how many of these new distilleries do you think are appearing at 40% ABV or 43% ABV? How many are chill filtering? How many are relying on caramel colour? We're talking about 3-year-old whiskey here, right? This is young spirit, very young spirit. You know, it should be very, very tempting for them to rely on natural colour. Sorry. Look at the colour of this. Look at the colour of this. You only need to rely on fake colour if you can't provide the colour from the cask. That's just it. That's just what it is. And then all the things that come with fake colour, like putting Farbstoff to put it into mainland Europe, continental Europe or Germany, and then having that emulsifying effect, having that issue that you strip us from the pleasure of holding a glass up and saying, look at the colour of this whiskey because it's fake, it's to a specification. They're not doing that. That's not what's happening with new distilleries. So it means that when you walk into a shop and you look at the selection that's available, or if you're browsing online, it's not bled through to duty free yet. That's still an ugly place to go whiskey hunting. But when you go into the specialist retailers and you see a full shelf of Kingsbarns, it's there. A full shelf of Loch Lee, 3 different varieties, different selections from Lindores, different selection from Glasgow Distillery, Clydeside sitting on the shelf, Ardnamurchan sitting on the shelf. We are seeing more and more and more natural product available. Product that didn't exist before they came along. They are breaking the mold. We do not need to follow in the footsteps of blended whiskey when we are making flavour forward malt. And if we are making flavour forward malt, I say we like it's my whiskey, apologies. But if we're making flavour forward malt, we don't want to strip it. We certainly don't want to fake its colour. And we don't want to dilute it. 46% is fine, 48% is fine. These are good strengths to put whiskey out at. Perfect strengths. And I don't think they prevent newbies or newcomers from enjoying whiskey if the flavour ticks the boxes. Let's see what you've well, let's grab the chat first. What am I missing here? Mirko is saying, please scan the QR code. Does age matter now? Ian, I want to ask you the question. It does matter. If whiskey is made in bulk where they've chased efficiency and they've chased consistency, age matters because it's important, because we can contextualise it amongst all the other factors that's involved in making that malt whiskey. And we know if something's been put down in a second fill, third fill cask and it's been left for 12, 14, 15 years, we know there's a chance it's going to be pretty good whiskey. But we know if the distillate has been made with a focus on flavour first and it's been put into genuinely hand-selected casks and not just every cask is hand-selected, then we know that it's different. We have to contextualise it. Glen Scotia Victoriana just took the best Scotch whisky. Now, there is some super old whiskey in Victoriana. I think some of the a proportion of the stock in Victoriana is up to 18 years old. But some of it is quite young whiskey too. I think it's down at 8 and 10 years old as well. I should have committed the Victoriana makeup to memory by now, but apologies, Michael, if you're watching the I think I'll get it tattooed on my arm or something. Um, but that was a non-age statement whiskey, and it took the plaudits on Saturday. We have realised that non-age statements, when they first came out, they came out in a very cynical way because they didn't want to. They had just a problem with meeting demand. They didn't have the stock. They had to go to non-age statement, and they had spent years with plenty of stock. So age became not only uh, an absolute stonewall thing, but it got more and more and older as time went on. So it became a bit of a rod for the industry's back until today, where they premiumized the hell out of it, so it's super expensive. Okay, let's do what Mirko's asking and scan the barcode. It might sometimes the new expressions don't work. Open in Chrome. Just got a blank screen so far. Doesn't want to work. Leave it for a second. I know that on the 0922, the release that came before this, which is their cask strength one, I know they had a problem with it. And I think they've maybe got the same problem with this. So I think it takes them a while to get it loaded up to the website. Let's leave it there, Mirko, and see what happens. Ian, so I accept exactly what your point is. Does age matter now? I think age does matter, but we judge it differently depending on the context of the whiskey. I think if Glen Keith comes out with a 5-year-old, I mean, look at this Chininic, this Glen Cooper, right? This is the product that you would probably see sold in the Eastern European countries and Russia and things like that, but there's less of a market there, obviously, right now. So we're seeing a lot of this back here. This is fine whiskey. I've drank a few drams out of this, but it's not one you would reach for. This is cheap whiskey. It's a 5-year-old Chininic. 46%, great, but it's coloured within an inch of its life. It's young and it tastes young, and it needs to work a bit harder. This is for people who want to drink, not for people who want to taste. It's not a bad whiskey. It's just not a great whiskey. I think if age is applied to that and a 5-year-old Ardnamurchan, they're not comparable. They're absolutely not comparable. They're made in a very, very different way for different purposes, matured in different casks. We, as invested whiskey enthusiasts, can work that out, and we can extrapolate, get that, contextualize it, and take it forward and make a much more informed decision. So I've had a so maybe the QR code, maybe it takes them a while, maybe they're too busy to get too in much of a hurry to get the release out, that they have to do the housekeeping after the event. Everybody message Ardnamurchan now and ask them why their QR code isn't working. Yeah, Whiskey Games says, hold up the bottle and we can scan the QR code. That's terrific, Matt. Okay, let's see if that can work. I'll try and hold it so it's at least in some light and out of shadow. There we go. Do you think that's going to work? Do we really think that you're going to be able to scan that QR code? What's really interesting is that it comes up with what bottle number it is when you scan Ardnamurchan QR codes under normal circumstances. So there's going to be a lot of data that lots of people are scanning this single one bottle of whiskey. Hoyt is saying, I really like these surveys, makes the vPub more interactive. Oh, so let's have a wee look, Hoyt, what's happening on the vote. Oh, Lindores Oloroso, the really dark one, has come a close second to Lagg first. Our barley, one of the ones I was most interested in, obviously, you guys are least interested in, core range, and see, people are still suckers for this really, really dark whiskey, aren't we? Suckers for it. 17% for the Lochleaf Fallow, but Lagg has taken it with 39% for first. So let's get this wee Lagg opened. I've tasted this. I know what I'm in for here. This is not going to be a surprise to me. But I'd also tasted the Ardnamurchan before I opened that. And the idea is for these things that some of these bottles you might be able to get, and other ones you might not be able to get. Very unique bottle. Look at that color. It's golden yellow. And this one, rather than having the kind of magenta highlights of the Ardnamurchan, this has got a kind of lime coloured, greeny highlights, this one. I don't know if the glass is tinted a wee bit. The glass is tinted a tiny wee bit. There we go. Lag is open. Now the other Arons do not glug. Let's see if Lag glugs. Oh, very, very quietly. Very quiet. Let's get some of that lag on the side of the glass because I know it to be a very heavy, viscous spirit. And then I'll hold it up in the hope that it can focus. That's clinging to the glass like most whiskies do, quite honestly. But it's hanging about for a while. Hopefully you can see that. Quite a shaky hand there, Roy. Cool, ashen, outdoor peat. Embers, spent fires, beach fires. Crisp green apple, sharp apples. A kind of white bread flour thing. It's the malt. I know it's the malt, but I'm trying to articulate it's kind of like a handful of grist. I like it's like a almost like a odd creaminess. But this is sharp. This is quite jagged. And it's the smoke is an ashen smoke. It's like ash. Burnt sticks, outdoor, kicked fires. Let's go in for a wee sip. Aaron have put in, sorry, lag, put in a water purifier about a year into the production. This is pre-water purifier. And the water on Aaron down at Lag, I believe to be very lime forward. What we have here is this texture is like single pot still Irish. It's very thick. It's almost if you've ever sipped really cold whiskey from a cask in a warehouse in the cool temperature, it helps the viscosity. It just makes it thick and viscous. But I can tell you this has been in my house for weeks now, and this is at room temperature, but that viscosity is there. It arrives thick. It rolls over your palate. There's youth there. There's still a new make edge to this. It's lemon. Suddenly from nowhere there we get this lemon citrus rolling in. Salted lemon. Again, what the fruits that I'm getting are sharp fruits, they're tart. But it's clinging, it's on my teeth, it's on my palate. Oily. Oily spirit. Unique. Unique. I think this is not the whiskey that you would buy and woo guests with, telling them, "Oh, try this new terrific whiskey from." This is whiskey for you to buy as an enthusiast, and whiskey for you to fathom where else you could taste this. This is now whiskey. This is only today whiskey. This is gone in the future whiskey. As this spirit matures, they won't continue to put this out. This is young and brash and sharp. This is the best word is snapshot. I can't think of a better word than that. And it's the most I've ever enjoyed a glass of it too. And I'm asking it to work quite hard. It's youthful. It's spirity. Of course, it's spirity. It's only just over 3 years old, right? But you do taste the spirit. You get just a flash of new make, but then the texture, the ash and peat smoke, the lemon tartness, the bitterness. It's a light bitterness. So think of Islay, Southern Islay whiskies, especially like a Lagavulin, Coolilas too. They can sometimes be the finish brings you on almost like a powdered sugar sweetness, candy floss or icing sugar or something. This is a different kind of sweetness. This is like a floral sweetness. It's like a sweetened lemon, and it hangs around for quite a while. Yes, more unique whiskey. It's incredible. And I think it's coming because it's very deliberate. If you see the stills, if you see the Lochranza stills in the north, they're very elegant and narrow, quite tall by comparison. But down in Lag, you've got these big, kind of fat, wide, triangular type stills, these big, beefy things. And it's all very, very deliberate. They are not making spirit that's designed to be enjoyed at 3 years old. The fact that we're able to buy it at 3 years old, fully optional, it's on us, and if you can get it, that's kind of like a wee added bonus. They are not This is not spirit that's meant to be enjoyed at this young an age, I'm sure. Can we enjoy it at this age? Absolutely. Absolutely. MG Rodden is saying producers that haven't learned their lessons from COVID, no bars, no duty free, no passing consumers, will make the same mistake again. Enthusiasts have kept the market afloat. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. You make a good point there. And they have also kept it afloat by, we must never forget this, hoarding, putting a lot of things on the shelf. Steve Atkins is saying, challenge the Lindores colour, taste it. Where did Lindores come second then? It did 34%, very close. Kind of a new make taste, the lag. Falscraft is saying, yes, there is a wee bit of new make in it, but no, it's not. I don't think I'm being fair by saying it tastes like new make. That's not true. But there is very spirity elements to it. I will tell you that that's the most I've enjoyed that whiskey. The first time I tried it was at the Bonaccord. I took a pour. I bought a glass at the Bonaccord, and it wasn't fair to the whiskey because the Glasgow Whisky Club nights are those flights are amazing whiskies typically, and I let some other people try it too, and it wasn't being fair to it. When I was out on Arran, I got to try it again when I was at the distillery itself. Got to spend a bit more time with it, and I got to feel the distillery, understand what it was about, and understand a wee bit more about the philosophy and things that's what they're going on, not for 2022, but for 2026, for 2028, and beyond. And I understood it a lot more. I bought a bottle because if I can buy a bottle and tell you about it, that's why I'm here. That's why I exist. I didn't buy it for investment. If I decided that I was never going to open this and it sat there, it might have appreciated quite nicely, but I'm going to get good value out of this. And I'm going to get more value out of this than I expected. And that's a wee pleasant surprise. Falsgraf, it is young spirit, but it's good young spirit. Conal Mackenzie, Max come in and apologised. Roy, sorry, barcode not live yet, working on it. Aye, it's like I suggested, it's probably housekeeping. Getting the product out there is more important to you than the housekeeping that comes after it. Excuse me. As Rolex is saying, is the sweetness not from over charring casks to caramelise sugar? in order to flavour whiskey rather than mature the whiskey. Uh, no Rolex, you need to try some new make spirit. New make spirit is the barley itself, uh, the mash, the fermentation, the distillation brings sweetness. Don't be thinking that. I hear you though, because heavily charred and casks bring their own elements of sweetness in. But if you've ever tasted new make spirit, you'll taste sweetness. You'll taste a sweet spirit oftentimes. Don't get fooled into thinking that it's some kind of contrived sweetness. Sandy McDonald is saying, have you tried anything from Avanjaric? Which I stumbled across when on the Isle of Lewis this summer. And yes, I bought a 50cl, no age statement, Madeira finish at 63% ABV for a whopping £95. I did. I tried an Avanjaric. I tried the red. Was it the Red River release or something? I don't know that Avanjaric is Red River, but I can't remember what it was called. It was a red label. It was a wee bottle. It might have been a 50cl bottle actually, and I think it was also at the Bonaccord. I'm certain it was at the Bonaccord. It was at the Bonaccord. I got to sit with the bottle, and it wasn't very good. I didn't get on with it, and I've never seen any more for sale. I think I would go right out and pick up an Avanjaric today if I saw one available, if it passed my radar, because I'm going back to 2016, I think 2017, maybe 2016. It's been a long, long time, Sandy, a long time. How are you getting on with yours? Greg is saying, Watchman 999 laughing. Are you laughing at me burping? I think you probably are. Let's move on to the next thing that I think new whiskies are making an impact on. And I think this is huge. It's bigger than we expect. I think what new distilleries are positively having a fantastic effect on image, the image of whiskey. Why? We can all try. We can all try to make whiskey accessible to everyone. Make it welcoming for everyone, make it as inclusive as possible. We want everybody to taste how fantastic a thing this can be for the human condition when enjoyed responsibly in the way that we like to enjoy and share our whiskey, of course. But we're not succeeding enough. It's not happening quickly enough, is it? I was really excited to go to the Glasgow Whisky Festival in February and see so many young faces in there, see so many mixed faces, to see much, much more women coming into the scene, and just generally a feeling of more diversity, but not nearly enough. Not even enough to even match the diversity that's on the other side of the tables or back making the whiskey, selling the whiskey, doing all the things in the industry. We're not even at that point yet. The enthusiast side of whiskey is still a wee bit stuffy. Do you know what I think's worse? Diageo, Macallan, Highland Park, some other brands out there that are marching down this luxury goods strategy and telling us that the beautiful whiskies are only for people with much more money than us. They're only for rich folks. That's very stuffy. I know they're a business, but it's out of touch. It's odd. Whiskey's a people's drink. It's frustrating to me to see these really short-term minded policies made by people that I fathom in my wee mind. It's kind of my conspiracy theories that happen in my head, that they don't care much about whiskey or know much about it, honestly. I don't think they actually sit back and lick the whiskey off the inside of their teeth and spend time contemplating it and thinking about it. I don't think they share it too much. I think it's frustrating to see policies made where whiskey is taken away from people. So it's often some of the best whiskies, unfortunately. That is not good for the image of whiskey. The industry drove whiskey into the dirt because of image. Make no mistake. The crash in whiskey in the late 70s into the 80s, that was about fashion and image. And it's happening again. It's for people who can afford Bentleys and Rolexes. It's for people who have money that can just drop. Oh, what's the best? Give me the best. Yes, I'll take the best. And unfortunately, there are too many people that look a wee bit like me. But new distilleries are coming onto the scene, and their branding is whimsical and all over the place. It's turning things upside down. It's changing how we look at whiskey, how we think about whiskey, how you can have two things, two releases at the same time in the same shaped bottle that look so completely different like this. There's far less stuffiness here. This is a good thing. It's good for everybody. There are absolutely no negatives from this. It's compelling. This is new distilleries that are doing it. And it doesn't mean that the way that whiskey has been presented up until now, aesthetically or from a natural perspective, whatever it is, it doesn't mean that that's suddenly irrelevant or it's going to. It just means that it's much more diverse now. There's much more variety available, and with that colour, with that spread of variety, I just think it's all a bit more vibrant. And these small producers who are willing to spend time talking about their product and getting people connected, rather than these distant, aloof corporations that even when we directly communicate them and with them and say you've won a very big award, voted by thousands of people in the community, they don't even respond to an email because it's not cool. It's not on point. It's not their vibe. It's not what they're doing. It's short-termist. It's foolish, and it is not inclusive. Precarious Davis saying, "Man o' words, man o' swords." Annandale. I think that Annandale is. I got a chance to through the Glasgow Whisky Club, as I think you did. Oh, Dave, I don't think you were there that night, but Ewan was, and Graham Fraser was, and lots of other folk. We got to try Annandale. Annandale need to make a couple of tweaks, and it's going to change. It's odd now. It's odd to have a 60+% ABV product at £120 selling it to tourists. I don't understand what's working there. Somebody needs to shine a light on what's happening at Annandale. I don't have a bottle of Annandale here. And I love the distillery. I love it. Love the history, love the look of the place, the feel of the place, the story behind the place, everything. The whiskey positioning is odd. Scott Allen is saying, totally agree on the big boys. MJ Rodden, good to see you in, Scott. Hope you and Becky are well. MJ Rodden is saying, I got an Avenjarric 10-year-old 46% unchill filtered from a shop in Stornoway. Hands down, the strangest whiskey I've had. I think it suffers from poor casks. Could be really interesting and decent oak. Interesting, MJ Rodden, very interesting. Falscraft is saying, Ardnamurchan and McNean are the sustainable ones. Kilchoman and Springbank making no more than they can. And folks like Clydesdale do the urban stuff. All affordable. That's a good way of looking at it. Precarious Davis saying, sorry, I picked up that one. Danny Hevington is saying, I remember 20 years ago buying an old work colleague Macallan in the pub, long before I was into whiskey. I wonder what he drinks now. There's a chance he might still drink his Macallan, but if he's invested in whiskey at all, it's difficult for me to remember the last time I had a bottle of Macallan here, and we just don't talk about it. This maybe pops up in a quiz question from time to time. It's not. Good luck, Macallan. Off you go. I hope it works out for you long term. It's incredible. If you follow fashion is a very, very fickle thing. Let's end this poll. I've opened up the other one. We can get rid of it now. I am going to indulge whoever it was that was asking me to open up this Loch-Lee, because there's one final thing to talk about after image. And that is, it's already been touched upon by, I think it was Falscraft, was it, that talked about the variety out there. But he did talk about sustainability. We've got new distilleries here for the most part. We've got some resurrected site. Annandale is very much a resurrected site, but they had to build essentially a new distillery. There's no question there. And all of these new distilleries have had to be much, much more bang up to date with all the current guidelines, regulations, definitions, whatever it may be, on Sustainability. That's quite a muted wee pop there, Lockley. Come on, you can do better than that. That's a bit better. Now, as much as the incumbent distilleries are trying to be sustainable, what they're actually trying to do is save on energy costs, right? There's an argument that the current energy prices are going to drive a lot of people to be a hell of a lot more sustainable. Not because they want to be sustainable, but just because they need to spend a lot less on energy. But I'm not just talking about energy costs. I'm talking about the way that they view packaging and the weight of the glass, the amount of extra packaging around it, the amount of packaging that's in transportation, all of it. Sustainability is about future. It's about long term. It's about what we leave for behind. And I don't know how it's difficult not to fall into. I'm not trying to be woke here. Their only job is to make the world better for the next generation, and I think they're making an arse of it, right, left, and centre. And we're defending this and defending it. We're shouting in the wrong direction, and just don't be wasteful is got to be one of the most basic things that we've forgotten after 2 or 3 generations of privilege. Things that we just get and expect and free. Things that our grandparents would have looked at and thought it was ridiculously wasteful. But now that's coming back again. It's been forced on people to think this way. We can't waste things. New distilleries, through looking at their own backyards, their own environments, for the most efficient way to get their good quality products out into the market in a nice, presentable way, but in a fair way and in a responsible way, they are leading the way. They are showing the incumbents, and I have to take my hat off to people like Springbank and things like that. It's hard for them. It's hard for them at 1828. They've got 200-year-old equipment and a 200-year-old site. I mean, it's just, but they're saying, look, okay, we don't need these tubes. We don't need these. We'll just sell our bottles without these tubes, and we'll do these. All of them are trying, but there needs to be more. There needs to be more done, and it needs to be done faster, and it needs to be prioritized. New distilleries are there. They're showing you what can be done. Biomass systems, biomass boilers at Ardnamurchan and Nicknane, using local product. Circular economies that Alex Bruce will tell you about, that will talk to you about, to make it so that you can exist. Net zero, you can have the lightest footprint on the planet in order to make a viable product and get it into people's hands for them to enjoy. It's just not happening enough. We're not even close to it. And the Macallans and if you're doing luxury goods, the amount of the packaging that you send the bottle of whiskey out weighs more than the bottle of whiskey at times. It's just it's vulgar. I don't understand. I don't get it. It needs to change. And new distilleries, not only new distilleries in this respect, but they are very much part of the voice that's making us think differently about how whiskey needs to be. It's something to open and share. It's not a pretty ornament. Literally, it's something that reminds us what it is to be alive. Our only job is to not take from the generations to come. And I think we're doing that a wee bit too much just now. Ben Welsh Whiskey with Molly is saying, get that Lindores open, Roy. It's open, buddy. It's open. David Hong is celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 18 months, just wondering if you will rank tonight's drams at the end. I think I might. Zach Andrews is saying, cheers, Roy. Zach, it's wonderful to have you in, and it's wonderful to have you celebrating being a barfly for 33 months, buddy. It's nice to see you on the live stream with Leanne a couple of weeks ago. Okay, this is a Lindores. Oh, my goodness. So this is, on the nose, very reminiscent of Aaron 18. That really sweet, lightly fruity, high top note sherry. Expected this to be much drier, but this is sweet and clean. There's a nice It's soft, but there's a nice kind of whiff of kind of suede and leather. A bit of tobacco. No, not tobacco. What's this? Oh, a wee bit of milk chocolate. Melted milk chocolate. Superb. As maybe it is just a wee bit tobacco, like moist, wet tobacco. And the fruit is brighter than you would expect. Ripe berries, fresh berries, like a fresh raspberry, a wee bit green, and there's even a nice fresh mint, spearmint, peppermint, fresh mint, green mint. Very clean sherry, very sweet sherry, easy sherry. It's American oak. I'm certain it's American oak. I'm looking for some of that that dry spice, that pepper from European oak. But no, this is sweet and easy. This is not it. It wasn't the Lindores I opened, was it, buddy? It was the Lockleigh I opened. Does it tell us? It just says first fill Oloroso sherry casks. It doesn't tell us what kind of oak it is. But to me, it's that sweet and easy, again, in line with that RN18. There's a little bit of there's very little to betray the youth here. There is a little bit of brightness to it. There's a little bit of vibrance betraying the youth, but it's so well masked by that really sweet fruit and spice, soft sweet spice from the sherry. This can't be more than 4 years old, right? It's Lockleigh. This is what I'm talking about. You could put that down in front of there's no way that somebody's gonna pick this out as an 18-year-old whiskey. It's not gonna happen, but they're not gonna pick it out as a 4-year-old whiskey. It's just not gonna happen either. I don't think. I think this plays very well. I think that what this has clearly been made to sell at this age and be good from this age, and then as time goes on in the future, they're maybe gonna be able to rely a wee bit less on the cask to do this, that the time is gonna do it a bit better. I think they're using the most active casks here. This is fully matured, so it's 3 to 4 years old. It's been reduced, of course, it's down at 46%, but it's very soft. You could pour this for an absolute newbie. So where that lag, you'd have to be careful who you're pouring that for. You'd have to introduce it, talk about it, explain what it is. This you could just pour and give to someone. I'm going to go further. Aaron has their sherry bodega. I can't think of many sherry forward things that could bring this. We've got the Thompson Brothers at £34, but that's softer again. It's a blended whiskey. So if you're looking for a sherry experience for £49, I think £49 I paid for that. I can't imagine where else you would go to get this from a brand new distillery. I'm not going to rank these tonight. They are so completely different. Ardnamurchan's Madeira, the King's Barnes Dream to Dram, 42 quid, an excellent product. This Lockleigh, fantastic. The Lag, completely unique. I can't rank them. It's like comparing children. I don't. They're all good. I am very, very happy to have them all. I'm very happy for what they do for our whiskey scene, the variety that they bring. I'm very happy for how they're changing perspectives as well. Jimmy, like I saying, I think you should pour a Springer 10 and go back to this stuff and then tell us what you think. Deal, Jimmy. Deal. The bottle clinks are happening. What's your point, Jimmy? Like, your point is that for 50 quid, this is where it is. Where this is where it's at. Wouldn't get much argument from me. If every whiskey could be as good as this for £50, we'd all be very, very happy. This is the. I'm going to try and read the code on this. It's almost impossible to read from memory. There we go. What is that saying? This is 21st of November, 2021. It looks like November 21. Gorgeously tropical, light, bright, fruity. Jumps right out the glass. Fresh, clean, coastal, everything, complexity, fantastic. Terrific whiskey and that light whiff of that Campbelltown loveliness. Together, balanced, integrated, everything's there. It's complex. You're searching for these tiny little flashes. Fruit, bright, white lychee, grape, tropical fruit, light fruit, easy, clean, honeydew melon. Can I buy it? We can't buy it. The cost to mature this to 10 years old is pennies more than what it costs to get these to 3 and 4 years old. It takes time. It takes patience. We need to wait. All of these new distilleries with the attitude and the way that they're making whiskey, they're not all hands-on. It's not all manual like Springbank. It's not all the old antiquated stuff. It's hybrids, it's different takes on it, but they are all focused on a much more natural product. Can you imagine what the whiskey landscape is going to be like in 10 years, Jimmy Legg, if these succeed? All of these producers that are doing these things? Takeaway is just the future. My only concern about that future is this. 70 distilleries. 70 distilleries. Don't ask me about capacity. It was one of the hardest things I had. I'm anywhere between 35 and 80 million litres of capacity in those 70. Some of them I don't even know what capacity is going to be. Even the capacity of some of the new ones today, they're not close to the capacity. Some of them are saying 250,000 litres and they're actually making 65,000 litres. So it's difficult to know. Macallan, 15 million litres. Glenlivet and Glenfiddich, 20 plus million litres, to give you some context. So the scale of these 70 distilleries, I mean, they're much more granular, but in that number I'm talking about, Rosail is in there, Ailsa Bay is in there, Dalmonic is in there. There's some big number distilleries in there. If you take those out, the granularity collapses. The litres per distillery collapses to a much smaller number. But these are all being sold for malt's sake in the single malt play space, not for blends. If these distilleries can endure, I think we'll all have a lot more Springbank 10-like alternatives in the future. And I think Springbank is gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And I think Springbank 10 will still be enduring and be quite healthy too, if all of these new ones can survive. And he's asking, will half of them be closed in 10 years if they can endure? Blair Stevenson is saying more will be coming in the next 5 years too easily. It's crazy, isn't it, Blair? I wonder how it's going to continue to happen. Something has to give at some point. But let's keep this positive. Let's keep this whole thing positive before we go into a manky quiz at the end. If our takeaway from tonight is that if you're a whiskey drinker, if you're not a collector or an investor, if it's not you in charge of the distillery, all of these things, let's relax and enjoy it for what it is, for what we have here just now, for the variety that we have. We have new whiskey getting better all the time. We have natural whiskey, more of it all the time. We have more variety, more flavor forward, more flavor driven products all the time. That's what these new distilleries are bringing. No new distilleries are rocking up saying, yeah, here's a 40% whiskey, 25 quid. It's just not happening. It's happening in Wales, but it's an odd thing. It's a different model. I don't know. I don't understand that. All of these new distilleries are after you for your flavor experience. I think it's fascinating to watch. And if we're happy just to drink the thing while we can get it, it's a very, very privileged place to be. Pierre is saying, with all these new distilleries, I get worried about the weight of the malt whiskey yearbook 2030. That's Ingvar's problem. He's trying to keep it the same size every year. And you can see how it has to change every year to accommodate more and more stuff. Give Lindores single cask a chance. Fantastic, Marco. I should. Do you know what? I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to quickly. My drink for. I've got far too many open now. What have I opened tonight? I've opened 3 bottles, have I? Already. Let's get this Lindores opened. Let's get the Coca-Cola in the glass after somebody asked. Just look at how dark it is. Incredible. This is available. These are not special editions. Well, there is a wee glug from it. It's super dark in the glass as well. Just look at that. Fully matured in Oloroso Sherry. Again, I don't think they tell us whether it's European or American oak, but it's going to be American oak, let's be honest. It's just the way it is these days. There's not a lot of European oak around. Ooh, so this is all treacle. This is darker. This is dry, bitter on the nose. Not nearly as fruit forward and clean. This is a more kind of murky. This is much more. So treacle, I think for anybody in North America, I think it translates as molasses. Where I was hunting flashes of tobacco in the Loch Lee, this is tobacco. This is like a pouch of tobacco, but it's been sweetened. There's some jam in here, cooked fruits, cooked ripe strawberry, raspberry berries, black pepper, dark bitter chocolate. You know the script. You know that you know where I'm searching now. It's quite a marked difference. And again, this just brightens up. This gets sweet, and some toffee caramels are shown up here. Wow, burnt sugar. It's incredible. It's that milk chocolate thing's coming back again. This is darker. They're much more. Completely different. Not nearly as sweet on the palate. The overall experience here is like if you've just finished a big chunk of dark chocolate, but it's got dark cherries in it. This is the whole experience here is like a deep red. I know I'm looking at dark whiskey, but it's a maroon red experience. It's easy to drink though. It's easy. It's not challenging. That's so incredibly different. So we've got Lockleys first fill Oloroso sherry casks, fully matured, and we've got Lindores matured exclusively in Oloroso sherry butts. So this is using a butt. There's still a very good chance that it'll be American oak, but this is leaning a wee bit more towards the darker side. This is a much more seductive kind of dark, broody, drier sherry experience, whereas the Lochlee's a brighter, fruitier, sweeter sherry experience. Whoever it was that bullied me into opening up the Lindores, I'm very grateful to them. Thank you so much. Antoine Ham is in. Good to see you, buddy. He's saying, how much actual sherry do you think is in there as in leftover unrinsed wine in a cask? Ugh, I don't know. It's anecdotal what we hear about that. That's sherry sloshes around in the bottom. But if you imagine if it's a butt, you're speaking about 500 plus litres. So even if there's 2 litres in there, you're still speaking about, fractions of a percent. Generally speaking, I think that they disgorge the casks fully. I really don't know is the truth. Falscraft is saying, I do find the colour of the Lindors off-putting, but I am very much interested in the distillery. Good to get your impressions. Yeah, I mean, I can get too much into my kind of bourbon, refill, and that's my whiskey lane. That's what I like. But I'm in a kind of wee sherry cask vibe right now. It's that time of year. It's just coming into winter, late autumn into winter. It just kind of fits, and I like the richness. And one of the reasons the richness is really good because 1 or 2 drams is enough. You've had enough, and then you pick up something fresh and clean like that Springer 10 tonight, and it's like bang. It's just the contrast is addictive. Falscraft. Heading out a bit early to do some shopping, says Whiskey Franco. Food, not whiskey, unfortunately. Fantastic vPub as always. Cheers to you and the barflies. Thank you, Whiskey Franco. Thanks for dropping in and thanks for buying me a wee dram. Cheers. So there we have it. I think that the new distilleries, as things stand today in 2022, despite this crazy scene that we are seeing, despite all of these work in progress distilleries, despite these distilleries that are actually producing right now, these yellow circles you see there, they're making whiskey, but it's not released yet. And these green circles are the ones, new distilleries that have appeared since the year 2000 and have released whiskey. And then altogether, you mash these up into these 70 new distilleries, somewhere in the order of 70 distilleries we're looking at. I have to say that as a whiskey drinker, as a whiskey enthusiast, for us to complain or worry or whinge about this, we need to have a wee word with ourselves. It's wonderful to be into whiskey. If they come out and they charge us 80, 90 pounds for a bottle of whiskey, we disengage and we go away. They have to get the balance right. They have to price it fairly. They have to be around for the long term. And they have to get us talking about it and get us enthusiastic and wanting to share it as well. It's more and more important all the time. Most of them are doing it very, very well. I know it's the same in England for most of it. I know you're having some problems in Ireland with pricing. I hope that gets fixed. I think there's such a clamour for Irish whiskey just now that they're just making hay and maybe they're being a bit cynical. I don't know. I don't know enough about Irish whiskey and I don't know enough about English whiskey. I don't know enough about what's happening in your backyard wherever you are, which is why I've firmly focused on Scotch whiskey tonight. But right now, despite all of those distilleries I shared with you, a frightening amount, I think it's a fantastic time. And I just want to be grateful that I am here to witness it, to get these snapshots, to get experience these things. And I think one day we'll say, do you remember the first time I ever opened an ex distillery, Oloroso cask? That's happening now. It's always important to enjoy the now. Wee dram coming in. Did I miss it? Did I miss it? No, it's Jimmy's. If these are all precursors to a large group of Glengyles, I'll eat my shorts happily. I wonder if you got to try any of the work in progress Glengyles, the Occurrence, Jimmy. There's a lot of similarity with what I've been sipping tonight. That's a very, very good point. There were bourbon casks, there were sherry casks, they were flickering and switching and changing things. They were kind of pushing things under our nose. And, I only got to try a couple. I never owned a bottle, but it's reminiscent. Tommy Elmer is saying, I agree, and don't try selling 375 ml bottles for $40. Same old, same old. Tom, you're spot on. Don't be cynical. Don't be greedy. Don't be stupid. Play fair. You're in it for the long haul. It's whiskey. There is a quiz. Of course, there's a quiz at the end tonight. There is. And there is a wee bit of an on theme quiz tonight. There will be some new distillery questions. I think there's a couple in there that are stinkers, but I think generally for dedicated barflies, beautiful whiskey folk, knowledgeable whiskey folk, I think you'd be in for a plain sailing quiz tonight. So if you want to stick around for the quiz, please do. I'm looking forward to everybody who's coming to Glasgow this weekend, getting together and just raising a glass and being grateful that that's an opportunity that we have this weekend suddenly again to be very grateful for that. Jimmy Policy and Aquavite was the map the children's homework. I know, Jimmy, that was mine. That was my wee map. I was quite pleased with it. I quite liked it. In fact, I couldn't find a map that did exactly what I wanted to do, so I made my own. So this is my own homework. And Sevar Bjorgvinsson is gifted 10 Aquavite memberships. Sevar, I think that's very, very generous of you. Thank you very much. And there's lots of people jumping in and taking you up on your offer. Wonderful sharing from you, Sevar. Thank you, buddy. Cheers. I don't know what that means. I know it's a relatively new thing, but cheers. Terrific stuff. Let's bring in the quiz at the end. It's always multiple choice, as you know. You're only playing against yourself. You don't need to share the score. If you don't know, you can follow the crowd. It tends to make a lot of sense at times because it's a very, very knowledgeable crowd. But sometimes people like to play off their own back. Sometimes, if you follow the crowd, you can succumb to what's known as a banana skin, something that's intended to be maybe be obvious, but it's not as obvious as you might think. There's also the ass hat questions as well. It's usually the last question, which is deliberately obnoxious and horrible. Famously coined the ass hat question by Jimmy Legg years and years and years ago. It's just good fun, and it's meant to make you think about things, make you think about whiskey in a different way, and maybe the takeaway is that you learn something from it. So let's bring it in. With a wee different backdrop. Is that still the OSWAs backdrop I've got? It is. Let's get rid of the OSWAs backdrop. Bring in the quiz at the end. Good luck, everybody. Please settle in. The pass mark is usually 5 out of 10. Good luck to everybody. I think 5 out of 10 is a good pass mark tonight. Speaking of years and years, says Tony Nelson, you have a vPub anniversary coming up. I do, Tony. I do. And you were in the first one ever, don't you? I don't know what we're going to market this year. Just is what it is. Thanksgiving, isn't it? Question 1. Which of these distilleries are rumoured to be releasing an inaugural single malt in 2023? Who's bringing out their first whiskey next year, we believe? We don't know that for sure. Is it A, Rosebank? Is it B, Brora? Is it C, Ardnamurchan? 3 brand new distilleries. All of them were mentioned in the homemade wee maps that I put up tonight. Who do we think is going to be the most likely to bring out their own malt in 2023? Graham Youngs bought me a dram and said, glad to be just 2 weeks out from a wee visit to Glasgow. Have to pick up all the bottles from the new distilleries. I bet you've been squirreling them all away, sending them to your daughter there as safekeep for you to mule back to Canada, buddy. Well done to you. I hope you're looking forward to it. I hope we can get a chance to raise a wee glass together, Graham. But absolutely right. You're all kicking out the park. I can tell you that it is indeed Ardnamurchan. Ardnamurchan was originally going to keep on a hold of it a bit longer. I got to try it earlier this year. It's pretty delicious. If the thing that makes it into the bottle is anything like I tried out of the cask, we're spoiled again once more. But it's Ardnamurchan. Brora is producing. Rosebank is very close. I don't think they've run any spirit yet, but very close. 2, a new distillery which has so outgrown its location. It has plans of moving as soon as possible. So this is a brand new small distillery that's so quickly outgrown its current location that already, despite being a brand new distillery, it's already looking to move on as Ardnamurchan out on the west coast. B. Dornoch, up north of Inverness, or C. Isle of Raasay, out on the east of Skye? Not on Skye, it's on its own island, but that island is east of Skye. Which of those distilleries are already claustrophobically tight for space? They're trying to move on already. Absolutely. You've kicked out of the park. Absolutely. Dornoch. Dornoch, a tiny little distillery. I should have pulled up a picture of the distillery that they're in right now, the space that they're in right now. But I just pulled up a picture from Dramface news article actually over on Dramface. I took this image to show you what they've submitted. They've had a public consultation only so far, but they're looking to upscale things as well. So we're not just talking about new distilleries, we're talking about new distilleries who are trying to make more whiskey because of demand. Question three: which not new distillery was saved in 1997 when purchased for £7 million? And then quickly they launched what became a legendary 17-year-old. So it's not a new distillery, but they were saved in 97, bought for 7 millions, and then immediately they released a 17-year-old. Oh, can you imagine? Was that A, Bruichladdich? Was it B, Glen Scotia? Or was it C, Ardbeg? Prestige Liquids. Andrew is insane quiz time. I hope the chat has been going well. Yes, it has been, Andrew. It's nice to welcome you in. Take a seat and participate. See how you got on in the quiz. Who was saved in 97 and then released a 17-year-old? So the first 5 questions should be a wee bit easier. Looks like you're all doing very, very well so far. Ardbeg. Absolutely. 1997. The 17-year-old has long been discontinued, but it became a bit of a legend, the 17-year-old. The Ardbeg 10-year-old apparently has been out since 2004, which is quite incredible to consider. Question 4. Which of these distilleries is the furthest west? Geographically speaking, which of these is the furthest west? A. Lagg, B. Ardnamurchan, or C. Nicnean? 3 out of 3 from Under the Duvet, says Anthony Lambert. Jimmy Legg has slipped on something already. Danny Hebington and Falsgraf, as well as Alistair Gray. Alistair, good to see you, buddy. All on 3 out of 3. Jimmy Jazz, Philip Wagner on 3 out of 3 as well. Jimmy, it's always terrific to have you in. And Philip, good to have you here as well. Sugar Kitty saying in 1997, I might have been able to raise 7 million. Oh, I wish. So what are we saying here? Which of these distilleries is furthest west? Is it A, Lagg, B, Ardnamurchan, or C, Nicnean? Listen, there is a huge consensus for Ardnamurchan being furthest west because Ardnamurchan Peninsula is the furthest westerly point on the British mainland. The distillery itself is not that far to the west, though. And unfortunately, Nicnean is a bit further west, hence the banana skin here before the halfway point. Have a wee look at this map I've brought in here. I can show you that up at the top there we've got Ardnamurchan is the highest there, just a wee bit more further east than Nicnean, which sticks out that wee bit further west. And down at the bottom there, on the bottom half of the lowlands part, let's say, of Arran, which could be controversial, were quite a bit further east. So Nicnean was your answer there. I think that's tripped up a few of you potentially. Image question 5, another image from Graham Fraser. He sent this in to me. I'm very grateful for it too. It saves me scratching around the internet looking for images I can use or looking through my old photos. What are we looking at here? Which distillery are we looking at here? It's got to be a new distillery, right? Is it A, Lindores up in Fife? B, is this Kilchoman over on Islay? Or is it C, Dalmunnock? Oh, dearie me. Dalmunnock, Kilchoman, Lindores. So A, Lindores, B, Kilchoman, or C, Dalmunnock. Dalmunnock in Speyside, of course. Asbjorn Parmer is suggesting these are impossible. Asbjorn, it's wonderful to welcome you in. If you stick around, buddy, and if you indulge it, and if you have just give it your best go, I think you'll be surprised how quickly you can start to do a lot better in these quizzes. Just ask your fellow barflies here. Um, Terrific stuff. I can tell you that most of you have guessed absolutely spot on. Most of you think it's A. Lindores, and you're quite right. Now, this is despite the fact that Dalmunnock has a kind of similar glazed thing going on, and the new extension, the new building over at Kilholman has very similar kind of angles and vibe and feel to this. But I've taken I've included a picture from the other side. I got this from Malt Review site, um, to let you see what Lindores Abbey actually looks like from the outside. A. Lindores was the right answer. Question 6. It's a dram-face question. Which annual Bruichladdich release just reached its 10th edition? What has Bruichladdich released that is now in its 10th guise? Is it A. Octomore, B. Port Charlotte Isle Barley, C. Black Art? Which of these Bruichladdich releases are now in its 10th edition? It's a difficult call between these two sherry casks. They do very different things, but they are quite delicious. Falscraft is saying, I watched the Grail videos after the OSWAs and I know Lindors now. See, it doesn't matter that you're over there in Germany, Falscraft, right? Through the powers of YouTube, you can work these things out. Terrific stuff. I can tell you that, of course, you've got this absolutely right as well. Most of you are doing very well, but Black Art is now in its 10th guise. Interestingly, the 10th Black Art was released at £395. There won't be one of those on the shelf anytime soon. Question 7. Which of these new, currently operating distilleries were first to release whiskey in the 1990s? So new, not in the context of what we've been talking about tonight, but new relatively speaking. Which of these were the first to release a whiskey in the 1990s? Was it A. Lochranza, B. Speyside, C. Glengyle? So it has to be whiskey. It has to be malt whiskey. So we're not talking about spirit, or we're speaking about the first distillery to release spirit in the 1990s. It gets a wee bit trickier as we get into the second half. Hoyt is saying Octomore has so many versions. I don't have an Octomore here, Hoyt. It has its fans. It's quite compelling whiskey. It's quite different, but it's quite pricey. And I've only ever found one or two that I really enjoyed. Anthony Lambert is going with the crowd to say it's B, Speyside. And it seems like the crowd are going. Whiskey with Molly is saying 1993, suggesting that that was in 1993 that happened. So he's confident. I wonder what he's answered. Ben, I hope you answered B for Speyside. Sounds like you did, because you're absolutely spot on. In 1993, Speyside released their first ever malt whiskey, their legal malt whiskey. And it was called, look at this wee bottle here, quite a thing, isn't it? The pronunciation of this, it depends on how you pronounce the village or the whiskey, but it's either Drumgoosh, where you would ditch the G altogether, or Drumgoosh. I tend to favour Drumgoosh because it just rings a wee bit easier for me. But this whiskey is still available. It's hard to get in the UK and Europe now, this whiskey, but I've seen this on the shelves in the States. It's still kicking around here and there. And it's a bit of an oddball, but it was released by Speyside Distillery back when it was just a 3-year-old product. As early as 1993, famously, Speyside opened in 1990 after a couple of decades, actually, of planning and building. So if you answered B, you give yourself a point. Bit of a banana skin there, because I felt a lot of you would be tempted to suggest that Arran was the first out the traps. Question 8. Glenfarclas is renowned for its family casks vintage series, which goes far back as when? Glenfarclas's family casks. A. 1949. B. 1957. Or C. 1966. Jimmy Legacy and a little Highland Park-ish pick on the label. Are you talking about that Drameush there? Eh, oh, yeah. I mean, it is a wee bit reminiscent of those 90s, early 2000s Highland Park dumpy bottles, right? Maybe a wee bit. But the family casks from Glenfarclas, do they go back to 1949, 1957, or 1966? You guys are just amazing. How do you know this? How do you know this? I was sure that this would be tough. Spay Andrew's saying, I work for Speyside. Good for you. Good to have you in, Andrew, as well. So you've probably tasted and are quite familiar with that. I recognise your icon as well, I think, from Twitter. It's good to have you participating, buddy. 1957B is absolutely spot on, and the vast majority of you answered that exactly. Anthony Lambert is saying B, 1966 would be the year of my birth. I got to try a 1966 Glenfarclas because of a friend I visited in 2016 at Glenfarclas, and the word got out it was his 50th, and they gifted us a wee glass of 1966. It'll be a memory that we take to our graves. It was wonderful. Myself, the Whiskey Rev, and my pal from round the corner, Roberto. It was his 50th. Question 9 of the top 30 selling whiskey brands globally. This is the top 30 whiskies that are sold in this world today. How many of them are single malts? Is it A, only 4 out of 30 are single malts? Is it B, only 2 out of 30 are single malts? Or is it C, none are single malts? Oh my goodness, look at this. Whiskey with Molly Ben. He's cooking an 8 out of 8 already. He's going for the full house. Mirko is on 8 out of 8, as well as his Graham Young, Ian Bruce, Sid Martin. Terrific stuff, guys. Big scores. Asbjorn Parmar complaining about it being impossible is on an 8 out of 8. Asbjorn, I hope I'm pronouncing your name well, buddy. Gino is on an 8 out of 8 as well. Terrific, Gino. Sugar Kitty on an 8 out of 8. Oh my goodness. You're just very good at this. And Jimmy Legacy, I was thinking the whiskey in the series, not when it started. Aye, there you go, Jimmy. So, of the top 30 whiskey brands globally, how many are single malts? Only 4, only 2 are none. I can tell you that out of the top 30 brands sold globally, none of them are single malts. None. As I said earlier, we have to remember the space that we occupy in the whiskey scape. It's a mere sliver, and 90% of the product, almost 90% of the product by volume that goes out there is, and I'm talking about Scotch here, so if you mix in things like Indian whiskies and bourbons and things like that as well, it just becomes messier. But if we look at Scotch whiskey, 90% is blends by volume, and way high into the 60% by value still too. So there we go. There is an asshat at the end tonight. Let's see how the scores are doing. 9 out of 9, Sid Martin. He's hanging on. Superb, Sid. Asbjorn has slipped a wee bit. He's on 8, still a fantastic score, as well as Andrew Butler on 8. Philip Wagner on 7. Seb K, good to have you in, Seb. Wonderful to have you here. 7 out of 9, doing really well. Steve Atkins on 8 out of 9. Gino is on 9 out of 9, as well as Mirko Blockwitz is on 9 out of 9 as well. Mirko, I hope I'm pronouncing your surname well. Ian Bruce on a 9 out of 9. Danny Hebbington on an 8. Daniel Caballero, good to have you, Daniel, on 7. Andrew Pearce on 8. Peter Box 8. Tony Nelson 6. Jimmy Jazz on 8 out of 9. Still over 220 of you in for the quiz at the end. I love hanging out on a Thursday night with you all. It's tremendous. Okay, let's just sweep right into the asshat where I start to lose all my friends. This is deliberately designed to be a wee bit obnoxious and awkward. A mini boom happened in new distillery construction in the 5 years between 1962 and 1967. Back in the peak of the post-Hollywood boom, this would be. But there was a mini boom between these 2 years. But how many were built between 62 and 67? Was it about the same as distilleries founded? A, in the last 3 years. B, in 2021 alone, or C, between 2000 and 2012? Total asshat question, but it's meant to make you think. It's meant to make you contextualize. Hope you learn something from it, but it's me being deliberately awkward. That's what this question is all about. It's hopefully always going to be like that. I've written min boom. I actually mean mini boom. It's a bit of a typo there, but happened in the 60s. 5 years in the 60s, between 62 and 67, or 6 years, I guess. How many were built in that period? Was it the same as the last 3 years? Or is it the same as all the distilleries that were founded in 2021? Or was it the same of all the distilleries founded between 2000 and 2012? Graham Young is saying fingernail biting. Blair Stevenson is saying, because, why not? And Anthony Lambert is saying, come on, it's the asshat, Anthony. Falsgraph is saying, please tell us which ones. I can tell you, I don't know if I do know which ones actually. I would have to go through them, buddy. But I can tell you that there were 11 distilleries in that mini boom of the 60s, between 62 and 67. There were 11 distilleries founded. I tried to go through, I could only find 10 of them. It was Tomintoul, Tamnaville, Loch Lomond, Glenallachie, Deanston, Clynleash, the new Clynleash, of course, Benwivis, Glenflagler, Killyloch, and Ladyburn. So at least 4 of those have been lost. Glenallachie's been resurrected by Billy Walker. I mean, it never wasn't resurrected, but it's been taken over by him. Deanston's been brought back on stream, thank goodness. Tamnavulin and Tomintoul are in the mix too, along with a Renaissance distillery of Loch Lomond. I don't know what the 11th one is. I need to do a bit more research, but apparently it's 11 according to the Malt Whisky Yearbook, which is the same as the amount of distilleries that have been founded in the last 3 years. So that contextualizes the boom. If we talk about 2021, believe it or not, I could only find one, because of COVID, perhaps, only one distillery was founded in 2021, Brora. I couldn't find any others that cited 2021 as their founding year. So last year was a bit slim, despite everything we've talked about tonight. Between 2000 and 2012, there were only 6. The boom has happened in much, much more recent times. Blair Stevenson is celebrating getting the ass hat for the first time, and Asbjorn is saying, wow, nice ass hat. Well, fantastic. I'm glad that you're on board with it. If you've answered A, you get a 10 out of 10. Let's see how we're doing here. No, says Hoyt, 8 out of 10. Hoyt is still a fantastic score. Peter Lee's in, getting an 8 out of 10 as well. Good to have you. Peter and Stewie, baby, good to have you as well, an 8 out of 10. As Asbjorn has got an 8 as well. Let's get rid of that big 10. Let's look for the 10 out of 10s over here instead. Damn, says Falsgraph. Just lower average, 7 out of 10. It's funny how there's so many, and just as it gets to the end, it's just kind of hard to hold on, isn't it? And it just... Elsa Gray saying an ultimate ass hat. Graham Young saying, dang, speed wobble got me 9 out of 10. Speed wobble, love it. Mirko is saying, nobody with 10 out of 10. I'm looking for it, Mirko. I don't think anybody made it. The terrible questions at the end take the wind out of everyone's sails. I think it might have. Now I feel bad. Come on, somebody. Asbjorn that no one's got a 10 out of 10. That means a 10 for Roy. I don't take it as a 10. It's not my... but it has to be special. To get a 10 out of 10 has to be special. And it has to be something that you can genuinely celebrate, right? So, but if nobody gets a 10 out of 10, it does make me weak. I like to see somebody celebrating. I like to imagine somebody taking their t-shirt off and running around doing laps at their living room. Blair is saying Roy gets a sniper coin. Absolutely. I think I've got a sniper coin hanging around here somewhere. I do over here. Actually, no. It's not a sniper coin. It's a barfly coin. A wee barfly on it. Maybe that's appropriate for the weekend that we're just about to have. Can't wait to welcome you all in Glasgow. It'll be terrific for those of you who can make it. And those of you that can't, don't worry, I'll still be here next Thursday night. Next Thursday night looks like it's going to be a Roddy night. I hope that you're in the mood for having a time with Roddy. Martin Fielder is saying 10 out of 10 by following the crowd and guessing at the end. It's fine, Martin, take it. And he's celebrating a 10 out of 10. Fantastic. Andrew Pierce is saying, cheers, Roy. See you another Barflies in Glasgow this weekend. I'm looking forward to Andrew. I can't believe that you're going to be up as well. First time that we'll meet. Terrific. Sugar Kitty is congratulating Martin Fielder. Fantastic. Wonderful stuff. And Andrew is saying, back to missing the photo. Uh, oh, back to missing the photo. What do you mean, Andrew? I'm not sure. Context, I've missed it. Jimmy, like you're saying, this was a challenge in vPub. You really tested me. I've never deleted so many of my comments before hitting enter. And Helen is saying, thanks for another fine laid back vPub. Enjoy the Glasgow Whisky Festival and have a dram or two for us. Of course I will, Helen. Slancha, and yay, Roddy. She's looking forward to Roddy. And Graham Fraser is saying, looking forward to catching up with some visiting festival barflies in the Potstill tomorrow night. Terrific, Graham, that you're going to be there to welcome the known faces. And Pete Head is saying, stopped with the quiz after Glenfarclas question to check my photographs. Oldest family cask is from 1952. In the distillery, they had a bottle from 1954 when I was there. Oh, okay. In that case, if anybody wants to take a point for the Glenfarclas question, they can take it, Frank. But according to my research before the quiz tonight, Glenfarclas casks run from 57. But aye, it's the rules on the vPub. If there's any contention whatsoever, everybody can take a free point, no problem. Photo question 5. Falsgraph is saying, okay, I get it. Now I get it. And Graham Fraser is saying, has invented a new photography category. Still life. Everwind. No pun intended, right? Terrific stuff. Listen, I hope somebody got something out of tonight. Something that's been playing in my mind, something that I'm enjoying. I didn't think I would be enjoying new distilleries as much as I am. And I think it's got a lot to do with just how they're progressing, coming along, their attitude, the way they're engaging with us, the way they're bringing good products out that we can enjoy at a fairly young age. And it's only going to get better for the drinker. I hope it's good for everyone involved in whiskey, honestly. Ben is saying, thanks for a great night. See you Saturday. Look forward to it, Ben. Can't wait. Cheers, Barflies, says Graham Young. Hope that all in attendance this weekend at Glasgow Festival have fun and post some pics. We'll do our very best, Graham. I'm rubbish at that, though. Stephen Toth is saying, Roy and the Barflies that will be there. Have a fantastic weekend. Shame that you can't be there, Stephen. And Andrew's saying, have fun matching wits with Leanne. We might try and do that, Andrew. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks to everybody that participated tonight. Thanks for hanging out with me and making it just fun. I like this. I love Thursday nights. I look forward to them. I'm certainly looking forward to next Thursday with Roddy. In the meantime, I'll raise this wee glass and remind you all that you're very dearly loved. It's wonderful to have you here. I look forward to welcoming you, those of you who are going to be in Glasgow at the weekend. And for those of you that are not, there's always another time. And until that time, we'll be here again next week. Slancha Barflies. Till next time.